WWF Royal Rumble 1995, January 22nd. Pay-per-view, the premium live event of our day. The Sun Dome in Tampa, Florida. About 10,000 people in attendance. Commentary by Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler. Opening impressions for you here during the kickoff of the Royal Rumble 95.
Well, so they kick it off with a limo pulling into the back, and out gets Pamela Anderson. And I kind of got a kick out of a bunch of the boys are back just gawking at Pam. Just they're making a big fuss over Pamela Anderson getting out, and I think it's all heels. I noticed Kama was there, Mabel was there, and they're just like catcalling her and gawking at her and stuff. And so, Pam is going to be featured in not the main event, but the world title match at WrestleMania 11. We'll get to that and my thoughts on it next week. But Pamela Anderson is going to be featured, and so they're setting the table here for what's to come. And I don't think it can be understated how big of a deal Pamela Anderson was in 1995, which this is our first show. We made it to 95.
Yep.
Survivor Series, our last show, we finished up 94. So this is early 95. And, but I think, we've talked a lot about celebrity involvement in wrestling, and a lot of this stuff doesn't age well because the people aren't significant anymore. But at the time, they were a huge deal. And Pamela Anderson in 1995 was on fire.
Yep.
That was a big get for sure.
Yeah, I had a poster of her on my wall at this time.
And I really liked that, because she was a big deal, and just all the heels just gawking at her as she gets out of the limo. And, it was a fun little way to open the show. And this was the era, and we've talked about it on our recent shows, and we're going to talk about it here. The new generation, the good stuff was really fucking good, but the bad stuff was really bad. And sometimes you had to wade through a lot of shit to get to the good stuff. And I think these series of shows that we've been covering, the last couple shows, and this one and Mania 11, I think is a really good illustration of, there's a lot of shit, and there's some good stuff in there, but there's a lot of shit you got to wade through. But the storytelling in this era was very good.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about that with the Owen Brett feud, where just they set the stage. There's chapters of the story, and they're really on their game storytelling wise in this era, even if a lot of the shows and matches are kind of pretty bad overall.
Yeah. Yep. I completely agree. Pam Anderson was over. Baywatch was over. Young Chad had a poster of Pam Anderson in some string bikini, slinky outfit on his wall. I also had Kathy Ireland.
Okay, I remember her.
Yeah, she was relevant back then too. It was an interesting sight to see a whole locker room full of guys dressed up in silly costumes, catcalling, whatever, at Pam Anderson, and how that was received back then compared to how it was received today. And that did just kind of run through my mind, but I let it go because this is a work after all. But she made a lot of money for being that figure and that icon, and I don't think there was anything inappropriate or cheap about how she was here in the show either, like at all.
No, I mean, people were making a big deal of her. I don't think it was even in 2022. I don't think they did anything inappropriate. It was just sort of like, okay, it's this sexy woman. We got to get a look at her, and people would be, we'd see spots with her, later on and stuff. But I don't think it was anything inappropriate.
No, nope, not at all.
Which, if this was 3 years later,
Oh boy.
It would have certainly if Russo was writing this segment.
Yep. And
It would have been a lot different.
yep. And I definitely do between this and WrestleMania 11 coming up. I love hearing your insight on how celebrities, like who is brought in and how they're used. Um, Pam, I really thought there were a couple segments throughout the card that were a little cringy, but not really because of her. But
Yeah,
we
she
can,
was fine.
yeah. And she seemed genuinely happy to be there.
Yeah,
Was very classy. Was used how I think celebrities should be, and it'll be fun to examine
yeah,
that.
yep. So our opening match, we have Jeff Jarrett accompanied by the Roadie versus Razor Ramon for the IC title. My first thought, so Jarrett comes out and he's got his light up gear. He's got the two J's on the hat, the light up band. He had light up boots.
I
There
didn't
were
even
little
notice that.
red lights on the boots. They showed a close up at one point, and I'm like, oh shit, he's got red lights in his boots. Like, that's cool. And I was thinking about, I read in one of Jericho's books, you know how Jericho would like have a run, go away for a little bit, come back, reinvent himself. And for a while, he was doing the light up jackets.
Yeah,
And I've heard Jericho say, like, that jacket gave him so much fucking trouble because it didn't work half the time. And he had a lot of trouble traveling with that and stuff.
yeah,
Like, he just talked about, like, it looked cool on TV when it worked, but it was a nightmare to keep it working and to travel with it because it was super tiny string and it would bet if he tried to fold it to pack it, it would break or whatever. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, this is 95 and Jarrett's doing it and everything always seemed to work. So I don't know if, but I just thought of Jericho and talking about how much of a nightmare his light up jacket was. But Jarrett's, I've never heard Jarrett talk about any problems with his light up gear.
no, and I do listen to him and Conrad on a pretty regular basis. I'm sure over time they'll um, get into that, but um, I thought Jarrett looked the part, and it's been such a long time since I have seen Double J Jeff Jarrett with the roadie.
Yeah,
Um, and it's just very interesting uh, these two being paired together and then going their own separate ways. And for the Road Dog, it'll be one more random pairing before he kind of finds his spot.
yeah,
And Jarrett's going to go through another two promotions before he just starts his own. So it was pretty neat to see these two together. It's been a very long time since I've seen that.
yeah. And then, like, yeah. So Razor looks great here. I really dig his vest. And I made a note, and I want to, before I say what I'm about to say, because it could be perceived as snarky and sarcastic. I mean this sincerely. I love mid '90s WWF Pyro.
Yeah, yeah,
It
like
just takes me back. There's a very distinct look and style that they did in this era that just makes me feel like a teenager again.
yeah,
And
like super sparklers.
yeah, like I love mid '90s pyro that the guys came up to, because Razor had it, and it just makes me feel nostalgic and happy to
Yeah,
see mid '90s WWF pyro.
yeah. Well, even back at Survivor Series '94 during the opening match, once they had both teams in the ring, each team got their own pyro, and
Yeah.
yeah, that was a big deal for that. The WWE was far from a billion-dollar company
Yep.
back then, and so being able to put these out, especially in a very small arena, was definitely really cool.
Yeah. I did make a note. I really like Vince and Lawler on
Yes,
commentary. At one point, Lawler made a joke. I didn't write down what the setup was, but he said something about the Phantom
of
of
the
the Grand
Grand
Ole
Ole
Opry.
Opry.
Um,
It's my first note.
but I like Vince and Lawler as a team. I made a note that the recently deceased Tim White was ref here.
Yep.
Um, you know what? I think of Tim White, I always think of his Andre stories. Back when he was Andre's handler, and um, so
I
I always
believe.
associate him with Andre.
Yeah, because I know they did that documentary where it was mostly him, but I also want to say that he had a book. Maybe it was his biography, but about his times with Andre on the road way back when.
I know they did a book about Andre, and it was just sort of like a bunch of people telling Andre stories.
Okay.
And I'm sure he was. I own it. I haven't read it in a while, and I'm sure he must have been in there. I don't know if he wrote his own book. If he did, I haven't read it,
Okay.
but that would be a good read, I'm sure.
Yeah. Now I have similar thoughts every time I see him, especially back in the blue shirt, black bow tie days of officiating.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Like when I think Tim White, I think Andre, and then I think about like during the Attitude Era, whenever they had to do a scene in a bar, they'd go to the Friendly Tap, Tim White's bar,
yeah,
just destroy the place, and you know, Vince would
get
pay for better shit to replace it.
yep.
Like I know the APA tore that place apart many times.
That's what I was just about to say. The APA made their name destroying that bar.
Yeah.
Um, I did write down Phantom of the Grand Ole Opry. I thought was really clever, and Vince seemed to get a genuine kick out of that joke too.
Well, I've heard JR say, because JR was someone who would prepare a lot and he'd have a lot of notes, and he always said, because he's famous for working with Lawler, that Lawler had nothing. Lawler was just an off the cuff guy. So I'm sure Vince didn't know what was coming from Lawler. So, and Lawler had a lot of good one liners. So I'm sure
Yeah,
uh, he cracked Vince up quite a bit with some of those.
yeah.
Razor is super over here.
Boy,
The
is he.
crowd pops for everything he does. Um, this was a good match, good wrestling, good psychology. Um, Jarrett's one of those kind of like workhorse guys in this era that can kind of plug him in with anyone. This is, I've mentioned it the last couple shows. This is where I like to see Jarrett
Yeah,
as an upper mid card heel. you
that
know,
that does
uh,
seem to work uh, really well with his wheelhouse.
yeah. So this is kind of how I like to see Jarrett positioned. Because he could work, and he could
Yeah,
work with kind of multiple guys with different styles. So this is probably my favorite era of Jeff Jarrett. Is this
yeah,
era?
yeah,
And he did have a lot of good matches here. I mean, he even pulled out a decent match out of Mabel, one of the
yeah.
shows we covered recently. So credit to him for that.
Absolutely. One of the first things I noticed was what I had said earlier that this is the Road Dogg before the New Age Outlaws.
Yeah,
Um, this is before he is revealed to be the real Double J,
yeah,
and I
yep.
remember being really into wrestling here. Like this around this time is when I had started watching it regularly again,
Mhm.
and the Double J character and the Double J storyline um, is one of the things that I remember pretty vividly. And my dad was a huge country music fan, as you probably remember.
Mhm.
And so maybe it was just because he was geared towards that. But when the Road Dogg is revealed to be the real Double J, and that was supposed to be his big ticket into doing really well, and it just wasn't. This just brings back a lot of nostalgic feels for me.
It's funny. I actually thought about your dad the other day because I'd found some random article online, and it was talking about um, Lee Ermey and his kind of career as an actor, which started as the drill sergeant in Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah,
And he was a real drill. Kubrick wanted a real drill sergeant, and Kubrick, who was known for micromanaging, just let him go and be as vicious as possible to these actors. And I always associate like that and Harley Davidson and the Marlboro
Marlboro
Man. I
Man.
remember watching that a lot at your house with you and your dad and stuff. And so, like, whenever I see either of those movies, I always think of Bruce. And
Yep.
so when I saw a thing about Lee Ermey and it was talking about Full Metal Jacket, it just brought me back to watching that at your place. And
Yep. I,
nice
I,
memory.
yeah. My gosh, young me got such a kick out of the first half. And I did see all of Full Metal Jacket even back in this time, and it was good. But um, it was only maybe like a year or two ago that Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man was, maybe it was on like the home screen of my Roku, or if it was free on YouTube or something, but it was, um, a free watch for a month or something. So I went back and watched it. And they
I
have Big
remember it
John's.
being a good movie. I haven't watched it probably since the 90s, but I remember liking it.
Yeah, I don't think there is anything bad. I mean, it was kind of dated, but yeah, my dad absolutely loved that movie and Full Metal Jacket.
Yep.
Um,
One thing I noticed here is Jeff did a couple, because he's an old school pro. He was getting heat doing spots with towels and taking sips of from a bottle of water, like just little things like that, and he's getting heat from it. Like, what an old school pro, you know?
Yeah, I had made a couple notes that he celebrates every little thing. Something Owen Hart did
Yeah,
later on. Owen would do it in a much sillier way, which was hysterical still.
yeah,
Um, but Jeff would just slow the match down, and I
yep,
found myself getting irritated with that
yeah,
because that is a compliment. That's what he's trying to do, but just
yeah,
slowing it down. Razor's getting annoyed. I'm getting annoyed, and the
yeah.
crowd is starting to give him guff for it. And so I really appreciated how obnoxious he could be.
Yeah, just stalling for time, wiping his brow with the towel, or, the roadie handing him a bottle of water and he takes a sip, just, like,
Yeah.
come on, get on with it. Like, so it's just good old school heat, good psychology here. Um, on commentary, they do announce that Lawrence Taylor is here in the crowd.
Yes.
This will become important.
Yep. I have a couple notes throughout here that well, Vince especially is pretty heavy-handed with just casually mentioning, because you have Pam Anderson, but that LT is here like a couple times each match. It was just real, not so subtle, and I'm not saying that to knock it, but they were doing a good job of making sure we knew that Lawrence Taylor was there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Whenever Vince is on commentary, or when he became a performer as Mr. McMahon, Vince doesn't know the meaning of the word subtle.
Nope.
The over exaggerated walk, the over exaggerated expressions, and I love him for that.
Yes.
But on commentary, sometimes it was like, all right, dude, like tone it down a bit, like we get who the baby face is, we get who we're supposed to cheer for, like just, but yeah, so there's nothing subtle about anything McMahon does, whether it's on commentary or,
Yeah.
you know, as Mr. McMahon, I like that he lacked subtlety,
Yeah.
but as an announcer, it kind of annoyed me that he lacked subtlety.
Well, and especially now that we're starting to wade into the boyhood dream era.
Yeah,
Uh, they're like here where Sean is getting, due credit as a performer. The King says that even though he doesn't like him, Sean's going to be his pick to win. And I'll talk more about that when we get to
yeah.
the level match. Um,
Here there was a trio of really nice drop kicks that Double J did. He
yes.
always had a nice drop kick, and there was a trio of them here. Um, I made a note. There was a spot where Razor grabbed Double J's legs and pulled him, crotched him into the ring post. Apparently, it was the greatest thing that has ever happened in Tampa, Florida. By the way, the crowd reacted to that. Like, they loved that spot.
Yep.
Best thing that ever happened in Tampa, judging by that reaction.
There were only a couple things that stuck out to me, and everything was fine, but there were a couple spots that really didn't work for me, like where Jarrett jumps on Razor's back to give him the sleeper hold. He is, bless you, he
Thank
is
you.
very clearly just getting a piggyback ride, and Razor's
Yeah.
just looking around with a dead look on his face, and then Jay just kind of slides off. I mean, it's nothing terrible, but I don't know. I guess I am a little critical of things like that, but just
Yeah, I mean, it's stuff you kind of notice now that maybe we might not have noticed it in '95, but
yeah,
yeah, I noticed that. I don't think it was anything egregious, but it was
no,
noticeable.
yeah,
Jarrett throws Razor outside. The roadie clips his knee. Um, Razor gets counted out. Uh, Jarrett cuts a promo saying he came to win the belt. Um, he mentions that Razor wears yellow and he might as well have paint a yellow streak down his back. I thought that was very prophetic because in a couple years, Razor is going to make a lot of money painting on people's backs.
that's brilliant.
I was like, that is some really good foreshadowing because I remember he's painting yellow streaks, I think, down Randy Savage's back. Like, he would literally
Paint.
go on into NWO and paint yellow streaks down people's backs and make a ton of money doing it.
He sure did. I didn't make that
So
connection.
I got a big kick when Jarrett said that.
Yeah.
uh,
Um, I Speaking of foreshadowing, there's a championship match coming up, and I think uh, this match foreshadows quite a bit as to what's going to happen there, and so um, I guess I'll wait to kind of get your thoughts on that to kind of connect the two matches together. Um, this match, I think, was trying to lay some groundwork or set a precedent for how the world title match was going to go in a little bit.
yeah, yeah. So Jarrett's cutting his promo. Yeah, I popped for when he was talking about a yellow streak, paint a yellow streak down his back, and then he tries to, and again, this is really good heel psychology. He tries to get the crowd he starts trying to rally a chicken chant for
Yeah.
Razor because he wants to win the belt. He won the match by count out, and um, obviously people aren't going to get behind Jeff for this. They
Especially against Razor Ramon.
right, so they restart the match. Razor's really selling the knee, and that's the thing. He gets Rhodey clipped his knee. Nowadays, that you know, someone would kip up and do a triple gainer off the top rope after
Yeah.
getting their knee clipped. Here, he sells it like his knee is really really hurt. Um, so they restart the match. Jarrett's working on his leg. Um, I like that Razor uses a lot of desperation offense once they restart the match because he's selling the knee. So he's not,
Yeah.
you know, beating him up. He's trying to get a quick roll up. He's trying to, do a small package, which again, there's logic to that. His
Yeah.
knees hurt. He's not going to start kicking him. Um, just good logic, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
Um, Jarrett gets him in the figure four. Razor's selling it beautifully. He almost has his shoulders counted down for three, which I like that spot. When
Yeah.
someone's in the figure four, like I like when it's like, okay, your legs are in pain, but don't forget to not keep your shoulders down too. So I like that. Razor
Es-
punches his way out of it.
Yeah. Vince had said earlier on in the match before the countout that the figure four was brought to the WWF by Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. And I remember making a note of that, and I wanted to research that, but I figured I'll just ask Tony next week. Um, but I thought that was a neat little bit of history. You know, if it were JR would have been able to tell you how long the shoelaces were on Buddy Rogers the first time he did it.
Yeah, or Tanay. Yeah, Tanay too. He would
Yeah,
have. um, yeah, I mean it's weird because WWF kind of goes back and forth. Where sometimes it's sort of like let's acknowledge history, and then sometimes they're like fuck this.
the Iron
Nothing
Sheik
has
never existed.
nothing has ever happened before right now, and they go back and forth on that. But I like when they acknowledge history.
Yeah,
Like even like now, like WrestleManias don't have a number anymore. I hate that because it makes them because Vince says it makes them seem old, so they don't say it's WrestleMania 38 or whatever the fuck. Like it's just
yeah.
WrestleMania now because they don't want to acknowledge history. Like, why would you not do that? So, but they do kind of go back and forth where it's like
Yeah,
acknowledging history or that nothing has happened before right now. But I yeah I do like that.
yeah.
So yeah, Razor punches his way out of the figure four. He tries to do his belly to back off the ropes.
A signature Razor move.
Yep, signature Razor move. Jarrett reverses it in midair, but then Razor rolls through it. That was a nice spot. He tries to go up for the Razor's Edge, and he does a great job here, selling the knee, trying to fight through the pain. Muscle Jarrett up for the Razor's Edge. His
Yeah,
knee goes out. It's super believable. It's sort of like a master class on how to sell an injury, um, i- including his offense. Like he was selling it when he's doing his offense. Like some
yeah.
people just sell it, but then it's like you're selling a knee and then you do a flawless 450 splash with a bad knee. Like he's selling it when he's getting beat up and he's selling it when he's doing his offense, which a
Because
lot of
that,
people don't make that distinction.
yeah, that knee is the reason the match had to be restarted. So it has to be significant once you do. And I couldn't agree more. He
Yeah.
gets Jarrett up and his knee starts shaking a little bit and then he just kind of collapses. It
Yeah,
was,
even the way he goes down, it's believable. It's really nice. And then Jarrett rolls him up in a small package for the win. This was good, and this was a good opener. We always talk about how they open shows. This was a good opening match, good IC title match,
yes.
um, and we have a new champ.
Yep. And this was Jarrett's first run as the Intercontinental Champion as well. And Razor was already a four-time champion by here too. So he has been established as one of the upper tier, upper echelon of the Intercontinental title scene. Um,
Yeah,
and
because there was a period of time where a couple guys just kind of traded that belt. It was like Razor, Jarrett, Diesel, Shawn. They just kind of played hot potato with it for years.
yeah, um, my overall feelings there. So I'll be a little nitpicky.
Okay.
They had slowed down the pace. Jarrett being a master class in heel psychology, one or two moves, does his strut, taps his brain, looks at every section of the crowd, and it's perfect. Um, After that, though, there were a couple times that I noticed they were doing some rather long rest holds, but then they would do, trading back pins with each other, like a little chain wrestling spot for covers, and then it slowed down again. If I'm being nitpicky, and I am, I thought that the the slower part of that dragged on a little longer than I would have personally liked.
Okay.
Um, but there's this really was a great match.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, I didn't even really notice that. Like the match didn't feel slow to me. Like I get where you're coming from, but I guess I didn't. You know, I thought they were. I enjoyed the pace here. The psychology from both guys was just off the charts.
Yeah,
Whether it was the heel shit that Jarrett was doing or Razor selling the knee, um, just a really just a master class in psychology for both from both these guys. Like this
yeah,
is one of those like guys at the performance center could study this match and learn a lot,
yeah.
from a psychology standpoint.
Yep. And so, Double J Jeff Jarrett with the Roadie defeats
Yeah.
Razor Ramon for the Intercontinental Championship. Um, like I said, I noticed that Razor was a 4-time champion. Jarrett's going to be, it's his first run. Um,
He'd have what, two or three
I'm not sure.
before he left. And then I think he had it again when he came back.
Yeah,
But he's had it quite a bit.
yeah, I was just trying to think of, because he held both designs of the IC title,
Yeah, yeah. Because
the
when he came
Reggie
back, I know,
Parks and
and
then
he
the
had the
oval.
short hair. I know he had at least one other run with it.
Yeah, and so I'm not entirely sure how many times he had it, but he was a great addition to the roster. I know
Yeah,
we both have some really strong feelings, especially around this time period where the crap is going to get really stinky. But he was a really great fit for this era, a really great fit for the IC title picture, and so
yeah.
um, just me being a little nitpicky, I felt like some of the wrestles could have been shorter, but other than that, I really enjoyed the match psychology that you were talking about, um, and I imagine we'll probably go back to this a little bit once we get into the world title picture about when championship titles can change hands,
Yeah.
how to what it means for a referee to restart a match.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, this was an interesting show. So then Vince throws it over to Stephanie Wyatt, which is someone I was like, okay, like I kind of forgot about her,
Yeah,
to interview Jarrett, who isn't there. So then they go to Todd Pettengill, who's in Pam Anderson's dressing room.
yes, he is.
My first note is how absurd he looks. His hair is ridiculous. Um, I enjoyed this spot. Like, so it's Pam's dressing room. She's surrounded by gifts from all the wrestlers. There's flowers. There's candles, candy, uh, and she's showing. Uh, Lex gives her a T-shirt. Apparently, he sent her a Lex Luger T-shirt. She got a stuffed bulldog from Davey. She
I
got
thought
shrunken heads. She got a can of sardines from the Bushwhackers. Sean sent her a framed photo of himself. This was really fun to me.
it was. Yeah, just those neat little gifts, uh, really themed with the characters from the event and everything. Um, and so I did make a note how disgusting Todd's hair was. Um,
Yeah,
I remember this. I remember Sean said that he had given a picture of himself there,
yeah,
and that was really, I thought that was hysterical.
yeah. I like this because it's like I popped for each of the gifts because it speaks to the wrestler's personality. So it's like, okay, Davey got her a stuffed bulldog.
Yeah,
Lex got her a shirt. The Bushwhackers gave her sardines. That's funny. She got shrunken heads. That's like, it's kind of like you got to showcase each wrestler's personality. Like, of course, Sean would give her a framed photo of himself because that's how highly he thinks of himself. You
yep.
know, um,
When
so
I had
I like this a lot.
Yeah, when I had my first job at Food Mart in Agawam, uh, I was there for Christmas, and so the the front end, we did like a secret Santa, and there was like a $5 limit or something. And I worked with Julie Williams, who was a couple of years ahead of us in high school, and I gave her a small framed picture of myself as a joke.
Yeah.
And she was one of my favorite people that I worked with. I never I actually hung out with her a couple times outside of work, but not a whole lot. We were just both from West Springfield. And one of the head cashiers said I had to do something else, that she really didn't get it. It was really funny with, my developing personality and
Right.
sense of humor. Um, but that was completely inspired from Sean's picture here. So I had forgotten about this and got such a kick out of that.
I've never heard that story before, and that's great.
Yeah.
That's a good story. Um, so Stephanie Wyatt, they finally throw to her. Jeff Jarrett finally shows up. She's talking to Jeff and the roadie, um, and the only thing I like the line that he said, the first stop on the Ain't I Great tour is Pam's dressing room. I thought that was a good line. They're really putting her over here, and that's a cool heel thing to say. And it also puts a nod because he's putting out the Ain't I Great album
Yeah.
with My Baby Tonight, which is just a good song. Like, that's one of those, like, if I hear it, it just makes me happy, and it's actually a good song.
I love when Conrad and Bruce come up, and Conrad just sets him up so perfect. It's like, here you go. He lobs it up in the air, and Bruce will
Yep.
slam dunk
Yeah.
that every time.
So I like this whole segment, the thing with Pettingill and Pam, and then the thing with Stephanie and Jarrett. Both good backstage segments. I liked them both. Um, and then we have our next match, IRS with Ted DiBiase versus Taker, accompanied by Paul. Um, there is a lot of talk about druids.
Yes.
Lots of talk about druids here. I should have
Yeah.
kept a tally of how many times they say the word druids during this match.
Yeah. I I'll let you go. But once we start getting towards the end of the match, I had a lot of thoughts about how things were going for the Taker in general on
Yeah,
this one.
this is okay. Well, I guess we'll get there because I have very strong feelings about that as well. So IRS comes out, grabs the mic. He did that a lot. Like he just either on the way to the ring or once he got in the ring, he'd cut like a really brief little promo. This one was funny. He said, "No one will rest in peace until they've paid their taxes," and I just like that whole because there's that expression, "Nothing in life is certain but death and
Death and
taxes,"
taxes.
and
Yes.
so we got IRS and Taker here representing death and taxes. Um, yeah, I liked it.
Yeah. Yep. Um, I I thought this was a pretty interesting matchup. Um, we I noticed that Vince and the King were casually mentioning Lawrence Taylor at the beginning of the match. The first thing I noticed was how much bigger IRS was than I thought in the ring with the Undertaker.
I made a note here that IRS does not look that much smaller than Taker. Like he's
No, he doesn't.
another one of those guys where you forget how fucking big he is. Like I remember, I think it was like a house show in Springfield, and I remember like when we met Sid,
Yes.
and there's the whole, you don't even like Sid
Yeah.
because you're the man. Sid, thank you, my friend.
Friend.
He
I
did
love that.
fist bump you, but I think it was one. I think it might have been at one of those Springfield house shows. It's or maybe not. I don't remember. But at some point, I Gold Dust. I was at floor level and I saw Gold Dust, and I was like, "This dude is massive."
Yeah.
And you see him on TV, and he just looks like a dude. Like he
Yeah.
looks like a larger than average dude, but he doesn't look. And it's like you kind of forget how even the smaller guys are big guys. You know, because I remember just seeing Goldust, and it was like floor level. I'm like, oh my god, this guy's really big.
Yeah,
Like
I
way
mean
bigger than
he's
he looks on TV. And like IRS, like I was like, he does not look much smaller than Taker here.
no.
And his arms are like, it's almost like the Incredible Hulk, where like that shirt is hanging on for dear life. Like you
Yep.
kind of forget, like he's really tall and he is a thick, muscular dude. Like,
Yeah, and it's always impressed me that he wrestled in slacks,
yeah.
suspenders every time.
And I like that his, not all the time, because we've seen a lot of IRS matches and shows we've covered recently. Um, and I think in this era he's just wearing regular black wrestling boots. But I think we covered I think it was a Money Incorporated match that we watched, one of the earlier shows that we covered, and he had wrestling boots that were designed to look like dress shoes. Like they
Yeah,
looked like patent leather, and they weren't shaped like regular wrestling boots. They were shaped like dress shoes. And I had to study to be like, are they dress shoes? And at one point, like his pant legs went up enough where it's like, oh no, they're wrestling boots, but they're designed to look like dress shoes. Um, this is the kind of shit I pay attention to. But
yep,
it does look like very uncomfortable attire to wrestle in. And then also like the fact that he's wrestling in a tie that is not a clip-on tie. You can see it is tied around his neck, and people make use of that. Um, you know, tugging him around by the tie, and I'm like, that's more dangerous than it looks like. Like that could go really wrong,
yep.
tossing someone around by the neck like that. Like
And
if
we
I
see
were,
Taker do that in this match too.
yeah, and I made a note of it where it's like, if I were, I would not want to take that spot because that can't. It doesn't seem like much, but that could be dangerous.
Yeah, I mean if it
I wouldn't want
cinches,
to have. I wouldn't want to trust people to be tugging me around by the neck.
yeah. I mean, and especially like no matter how you're working it, flipping yourself over there, it cinches up. I mean, you could
Yeah,
do damage to like your windpipe. Your
yeah.
I don't know.
And I think IRS would definitely be in that category of people we've talked about on the show when we go back and look at it now that are really underappreciated, that were team players, that were pros, that they didn't get the limelight, but they were really great at their jobs. And you know, we've talked about people like Rick Martel and Earthquake that we kind of have a lot more respect for now than we did at the time. And IRS is definitely one of those guys.
Agreed.
Um, there was a lot of stalling in the beginning here, and it's funny because in the first match when Jarrett was doing it, I appreciated it. Here, it annoyed me.
It was messing up the pace of the match. You think?
It just, yeah, here it just didn't seem as effective. I don't know. I can't explain why it worked for me when Jarrett did it, but it didn't work for me when IRS did it. I don't know. I can't explain why, but it just bothered me here. IRS does a nice drop kick to Taker's back. Um, and I like they do kind of have like a cat and mouse dynamic here, which I did enjoy. You know, um, yeah, I made a note of Taker, you know, doing the Beal with the tie. Um,
Yeah,
I,
even like on the face of it, this was a much better match for me than I would have appreciated at the time. There were a couple spots that I did make note of that I thought were interesting or entertaining. There's just a lot of psychology and a lot of uh, questions about how this thing was booked that I definitely want to get your opinion on.
oh well, it's funny because just from what you said, I get the impression that you thought this was better than I thought it was. Because
Um,
this really fell flat for me.
uh, yeah, well, it was just better than I would have thought before. Like most IRS matches are that way. for what I was trying to convey is that
Okay.
I've come to get a better appreciation for him. Um, I mean, I even know this is a Taker match. You know, a year ago, I would have just blown right through this, like skipped over it.
Um, there was a spot where IRS almost hits DiBiase on the apron accidentally. They go on the outside, they're squabbling, and then DiBiase calls out the Druids, who come out and they surround the ring. They keep trying to get in, and Taker's knocking them off the apron. Um, there was a spot I loved. So Taker had IRS up for the tombstone while he's kicking Druids off the apron.
Yeah,
That made me so happy. Like that was a really cool looking spot, and credit to Taker for being able to do that work. You know, because we talked about how fucking big IRS is, and he's got him up for the tombstone and has him there perfectly safe. IRS isn't going anywhere, and he's kicking Druids off the apron.
yeah.
I really like that.
Um,
um,
yeah,
and
there
it,
are. It
okay.
was also cool seeing Taker do his setup, something I think he's kind of waned away from in the later years of his career.
Yeah, he did it less later on in his career,
Yeah,
but when he did it, it mattered. He did it a lot more often here. I mean, if you look at like the first year or two of him being the Undertaker, that was half the match was him. You know, if you were able to get him down, then he'd sit up. He did it a lot more early on. Um,
yeah. It was a more slow-paced way of hulking up.
yeah, yeah. It was his version of that.
Yeah,
Um, Taker ends up getting the win with a choke slam.
yeah,
Um, yeah, the highlight of this match for me was him having IRS up for the tombstone, and he's kicking Druids off the apron while he's got him up for it. Apart from that, I thought this was a slow match. It did nothing for me. Um, After he gets the win with the choke slam, the Druids come in, beat down Taker. Taker fights him off. Bundy comes in. Bundy and Taker go face to face. IRS beats down Paul. Bundy beats down Taker. And then they take off, and he sits up. This really did nothing for me.
so I know that. Well, I've kind of discovered as you've done more and more of these that um, the role that the referee plays is a big deal to me. I mean, at one point he was just standing there. Taker has IRS up. The Druids are getting in. Vince McMahon suggested that the Tonka was one of the Druids. I don't know why, but that stuck out to me as silly. Um, um, but if you're just letting all of these people come in, like not just a little bit, they're up on the apron, going up on the turnbuckle, coming through the ropes, and there just doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. That just really strains belief for me. Um, and all of those guys were jumping in, getting involved, except when IRS gets choke slammed and is being pinned.
Yeah,
And I get it. You know, this is meant to tell a story, probably greater and beyond what the match is doing by itself. Um, but even after Taker wins, the lights go down, his music plays, Paul's in there. I mean, it was like 45 seconds to a minute of just fine, and then all of a sudden they run in there and storm him. I imagine when Bundy was ready to come out. Um, did you notice that Vince was talking about the Undertaker and his monster truck from the night before?
I didn't make a note of it, but now that you mention it, I remember that Vince talked about that. Yeah,
I just wasn't sure what that was about, and that was another thing that stuck out to me as kind of odd.
I guess just cross promotion for any monster truck aficionados that happen to be watching. I guess I don't know.
And that is most definitely a demographic that I think both would do. In fact, the only thing my dad ever took me to were monster truck shows with Bigfoot and Gravedigger, and wrestling shows at the Springfield Civic Center.
Yeah, it's funny because I think like the only type of entertainment more white trash than wrestling is probably monster trucks, maybe NASCAR. Uh,
Well played, Tim. Well played. Um, but yeah, and maybe I just also should have done more research into like the storylines. But for like the last year and a half, every single time Taker has a pay-per-view match, it's usually the Million Dollar Corporation. All
yeah,
run in there, get involved. There doesn't seem to be any, with the exception of him going to heaven and coming back and wrestling himself. Well, I guess there's probably more reason to it, but they're not really doing anything with this.
this for me is like my least favorite era of the Undertaker because of what he was given. It's like I don't blame Undertaker for this, but
Yeah,
this was
no,
just one dumb fucking thing after another for years with Taker. And it's one of the, that's like I give him a lot of respect for being as loyal as he was because it's just years of dumb shit.
yeah,
And it's like I know that you know once the Monday Night Wars start, I know Nash was close with Taker, and I know I've heard that Nash was like, Mark, come on over, man. Like, and it's like after this shit for years, like I don't know that I could have said no to that.
yeah,
Because this just like bunch of casket matches with Undertaker. You're wrestling the Million Dollar Corporation. You're wrestling Bundy. You're ascending to heaven. You're wrestling yourself. It's just you're wrestling the Giant Gonzalez. It's just years of awful shit, you know.
yep,
And he stuck it out. I mean, more power to him. He got it back years later, but that seemed like a rough couple years for him.
yeah. I don't know. Like I said, I think I was just kind of confused as to why this is still going on. Uh, where are they gonna go with this? I don't know. I did
Yeah.
think, and we've mentioned this almost every time we've seen Bundy show up. Bundy squaring off with some of the big guys back then is a really cool look.
Oh
Um,
yeah. The
eh,
visual of that, it's like ooh, and then you know
yeah,
it doesn't. From there, it's downhill. But him
sure,
stepping up, squaring off with someone, it's like ooh, okay.
yeah, yeah. Like at Survivor Series, where him, Bigelow, Mabel, Adam Bomb,
Yeah.
you had a lot of, you know, perking up and taking notice when they square up with each other. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, I don't know. This was it just seemed kind of I don't know. I don't want to be too critical. Maybe it was because I had to go to work after this, but like just I don't know. I don't think it told that great of a story. I'm not sure what the story is. I don't know why it was happening, and so it was just eh.
Yeah, it did seem kind of like, all right, Taker's a big star. We need to find something to put him on the card. Let's throw this shit together. Didn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
Up next, Pettengill interviews the champion and challenger for the upcoming title match. He interviews Diesel. Um, I just made a note. I feel like Diesel really found his mojo as a character here. Like in this era, he's starting to like the Big Daddy cool, and he's just got that kind of just cool swagger that Nash has. Like I feel like he's really starting to come into his own as like a main event guy. He's got the cool promo where he's just laid back. Um, I feel like he's kind of starting to find his mojo as the whole like Big Daddy cool. I'm a main event player kind of guy here.
Yeah. Agreed.
Because some of his earlier promos, he's yelling at the camera and like, you don't Nash doesn't yell. He shouldn't be yelling at. Like he's just sort of like just laid back, and you know. So I just made a note that this is kind of like the Nash kind of promo that I know and love.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, he seemed to have really hit his stride and
yeah,
realized that like leather works better than denim.
yeah. And then the Brett interview, just kind of straightforward. Both these promos, like they're not anything that blew my mind, but they're just sort of like they're both themselves. They're both like, okay, that is what Diesel would say. That's what Brett would say. And they're both sort of like it's just believable and very true to who both these guys are.
Yeah. I right before it started, I did kind of take a note. It said that Todd and Diesel and Todd and Brett, with how short those little interviews were, I thought it did a good job of like setting the tone for their match and kind of the feel for uh, their match for the world title overall. I thought it was very effective without having to do much.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we have Diesel versus Brett. Once again, Brett goes on third. That's apparently uh, that's Brett's rolling this time, and I just made it out. How many times here, like in Brett's prime, is he going on fucking third on these shows that we're covering? And I think that's the cool thing about us kind of watching these shows chronologically
Yeah,
is being able to pick up on stuff like that, where it's like Bret Hart doesn't go on fucking third, but Bret Hart's going on third. Um,
I could not agree more. But I also had that thought, but because I remember at Survivor Series where he lost to Backlund with the Royal Rumble, you have the match itself, and so do you think that in this instance it was okay putting the world title on as the last normal match because of the Rumble match itself? Or do you think that the fact that it's Brett going on first or in the middle was just a little bit much?
oh, sorry, you cut out for a second there. I think that I can see it both ways. At the Rumble event, I get if you want to put the Rumble on last, and I'm totally fine with that. And I also get if you want to put the title match on last. Either way is fine with me. I think a lot of it kind of depends on what the title match is. Like at the Rumble 97, it's Shawn and Sid, and it's in San Antonio. And Shawn's from San Antonio. So it's like, okay, put Shawn on last in that case. I get that. So I think it's if you've got a really hot title match, maybe that should go on last. If you don't, like if it's going to end the way this one ends, maybe it's best to put the Rumble on last. I think it really depends on kind of who's winning the Rumble and what the title match is.
Yeah,
Because this, I think, because of the finish, would not be considered a really hot title match. So it was probably wise to put the Rumble match itself on last
yeah,
here. It's just on principle the fact that the title match and you've got Brett and it's third. Um, and that's happened so many times in these recent shows. It's like, what the actual fuck? It's crazy how often they do that. And if we didn't watch all these chronologically, I wouldn't have made that connection. How
yeah,
often they're putting title matches on in the middle of the card.
yeah. And that is interesting, especially for once we hit Montreal. So it's like Brett didn't want to do business. Brett was selfish. Vince said he was selfish. I'm watching this, and it's like I don't know. I mean, we're just a couple years before, but this seems like a pretty generous world champion that you've put your
Yeah,
company on. So yeah,
yeah. Um, Diesel finally has music.
yes, that's
I
my.
got my harmonica. I've been waiting for the harmonica. I finally get it here. Diesel finally has music. I
That's what I
really dig.
wrote. Diesel finally has a harmonica.
Yeah, I really dig his entrance. You know, the music is cool. He's got that swagger. The the truck comes in and then the glass breaks. This was the original glass break before
Yeah,
Stone Cold. We
and
get it with Diesel here.
I thought that looked really cool.
And then he's got that cool silver vest. The entrance made me super excited for like fucking Diesel, fucking a right, you know, like
Yeah,
he was featured as like yes, like I'm excited about this. I'm pumped about Diesel here. He's got his swagger. He hugs Lawrence Taylor at ringside.
yeah. Vince
Uh,
said that he was the one who had invited Lawrence Taylor here.
yeah, and that's gonna come into play at Mania as well. So that whole Diesel Lawrence Taylor connection. So setting the stage here. Good job with the storytelling. You know.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, it just Diesel. Everything about his entrance, I'm like, oh, I'm pumped for this fucking Diesel match because of this entrance.
Yeah,
Um,
and they did talk about uh, Diesel beating Bob Backlund in, I believe it was 8 seconds
yep.
to get to the world title picture here. Um, Vince also, once Bret had come out, and I believe when Diesel was coming down, that Bret Hart is the only two-time Triple Crown winner, and he also verifies that Diesel became a Triple Crown winner within 1 year.
That was my next note here, and I thought that was a really cool way to put both these guys over. That
Yeah,
Brett's the only guy that's done it twice, and Diesel's the only guy that's ever done it in 1 year.
yeah,
Really good way to make both these guys seem super important as they're wrestling the third match on the card.
yeah,
But yeah, that was a really nice touch that made it seem really important, and like both these guys are a big deal, which they are.
yes,
Uh, this and we've talked before about that, you know, Kevin Nash became, you know, the biggest years of his career would come in WCW as far as being a star, as far as the money he made. But I think his best years as a wrestler were definitely here in WWF. Like when I think of great matches that Kevin Nash is involved in, I don't think there's a single one from WCW. I think about him and Razor, him and Shawn, him and Taker, him and Brett. And
yeah,
Brett, I think, is the best dance partner that Nash has ever had. Like if I feel like watching a great Diesel or Kevin Nash match, I'm picking something where he's wrestling Brett. Even over Shawn, and he had great matches with Shawn.
he did.
And Shawn, I think, is a very close second. But I just, they're, him and Brett were such good dance partners. And I don't think they ever had a bad match. Some were better than others, but I don't think these
Sure.
two ever had a bad match. Um, Brett's my favorite Kevin Nash opponent of all time.
Yeah, and uh, Brett and Sean both were usually able to get really phenomenal matches out of bigger guys
Yeah.
that pretty much anybody or most other people couldn't. And again, like you mentioned, very different styles, both very capable. Um, After watching this and the one from Survivor Series, I'd really kind of forgotten. Um, well, not Survivor Series, sorry. Survivor Series coming up.
Yeah.
Um,
That's my favorite Kevin Nash match of all time. And
yeah,
my favorite of the Brett Diesel matches.
yeah. For all of the gruff that Diesel got for being, a five move guy or whatever, he and you see it here. And like you said, Brett's a great dance partner, but being able to get so much, like the story being
Oh,
told,
yeah.
not just in the build-up, but throughout the match. Here, I don't remember seeing this for the first time, but wow, they got so much out of each other
Yeah.
out of this match for the world title. It was a great. I don't want to say it's a surprise because I knew it'd be great, but it was great to be able to sit down and watch this critically to analyze it because there's so much to take apart from this match.
Yeah. And like, I just love the dynamic of these two because it's sort of like looking at them physically, that tells you half the story before the bell even rings. Because Diesel is so fucking big, and then like just the like so intense. Everything is so believable. Brett's like a tenacious little pit bull fighting a dragon. That's the visual I have looking at these two. Where Brett's a tenacious little pit bull trying to take down a dragon. And it's sort of like um, I like when Brett tries to kind of get into a slugfest with him, which is
Yeah.
fun. I associate that with Sean because Sean's the type of guy that's ballsy enough to be in there with guys like Sid or Taker or Nash and get into a fist fight with them. But Brett does it here, and
So I I thought even just so here we had the interviews with Todd that were great. Um, Vince and King did a great job getting them really hyped up for this. It was a great build up, great tone, and then right at the beginning, um, Brett's like you said, like a little pit bull, and both King and Vince are like, Brett doesn't want to do this. Brett,
yeah,
maybe making a mistake here. He doesn't want to do that, and Brett's being out, and he still goes at it. Where even though he is obviously at a tremendous physical disadvantage, but then he gets Diesel to kind of bite at it,
yeah,
going a little aggressive, and then he grabs that leg, runs him over to the post, and I'm like, son of a bitch.
right.
He got Diesel to think that he wanted to slug with them, did it, and made him pay for it. I absolutely believe that was the plan.
And that's
And
the thing about Brett is there's a logic behind everything he does, and it's great storytelling.
yes,
Where
yep,
it's like sucker him into, you know, and then it's like, okay, here's where I really want to go with that,
yeah,
and that's the kind of shit that Brett was so good at.
yeah.
Um,
Just that little build up. I mean, I was just kind of grinning like an idiot, like, wow. It just looks like, oh, Brett's excited. He's really into this, and it's like, nope, nope. That ring veteran right there was
yeah,
getting this, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed new world champion to trick him into thinking that Brett was going to fight his fight with him.
yep,
And it was, like I said, I was just grinning like an idiot. I'm like, this is going to be amazing.
yeah, and that's the type of storytelling that makes Brett stand apart and makes his shit hold up even decades later that you just don't see nowadays. And Nash always put in the work with Brett. Like there were times where Nash did come off kind of lazy, like he was going through the motions. He put in the work with Brett. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, you're in there with the hitman, you're gonna go, you know. And it was just like there was a really good intensity with these two guys. At one point, I made a note. Diesel body slams Brett, and even something as simple as a body slam, but because of how big Diesel is, it looks like Shane McMahon falling off the Titantron because it's such a long way down. Like there should have been a crash pad. It looked like because it was such a long way down. So even a simple body slam, I popped for.
Yeah.
Um, and then you know Brett, and he kind of stuck with this whenever he worked with big guys, but it was effective and it never got boring. Where it's sort of like chop the big tree down, work on his legs.
Yeah.
And Nash had particularly long legs, so it like just the visual always looked really good when these two worked together. He does the ring post uh, spot. He does the figure four. Um, he does a nice suicide dive to the outside.
Yes.
Diesel tosses Brett into the steps. Um, I also made an interesting note here. Is this is a rare babyface versus babyface title match, which you
Yep.
didn't see much of.
Yep. That was my very first note.
Yeah,
Babyface versus babyface. Um, right around this time too, Diesel is limping, like he's, House MD. Um, but every move he does, even if it's slowed down a little bit, just seems like he has the force and the power of a Mack truck.
Yep.
Everything just has such a higher impact. And Vince said at one point, he said, "Oh, Diesel isn't limping. Maybe it wasn't hurt that bad." And I didn't see where Nash let off selling that leg once, but I do remember Vince pointing it out and like saying something. And so I was wondering if you had heard that.
I didn't catch that comment from Vince, but I never noticed Nash not selling the leg.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't either. That's why I was like, what is Vince talking about? I don't know.
Did I ever tell you about what my dad said about Kevin Nash?
He's a guy. It's him and Mick Foley, right? Where one guy you want to help you move.
I went to visit him in Florida, and we went to yeah. So I went to visit my dad in Florida, and we went to Orlando. We spent a few days in Orlando. We saw Cirque du Soleil, saw the Blue Man Group, went to Universal Studios, and I to pick a day where they were doing a TNA television taping because I wanted to go to Universal Studios, but I wanted to see TNA if we were going to go. So we went, saw the TV taping. My dad, when I was younger, he brought me to a few wrestling shows. He doesn't care about wrestling. He liked Steve Austin. That was about it. Um, but so we're watching the show. He liked the ladies that were there. Because it does not get the credit it deserves for being ahead of the game as far as a women's division.
Yeah.
Because they were doing it and putting on killer women's matches way before the Divas Revolution. So just credit to TNA for that. So he kind of went just to humor me. He liked the women's matches. I remember he was a fan of Gail Kim. And then Nash came out. And that was when Nash had it was long-ish hair. It wasn't long, but it was long-ish. It was that middle, he was growing it out, but it wasn't there yet. And that's usually a really awkward look if you're growing your hair out. And the two guys that pulled it off so well were Nash and Regal. They looked really cool with it's not short, but it's not long. I'm going off on a bunch of tangents here.
No, I'm just trying to picture Regal's hairstyle.
Yeah, there were times where he had it long-ish, but it wasn't long, and it just looked cool. And the same with Nash. And Nash had it white. He wasn't coloring it. It was gray, and it was kind of not long, but in the middle, and it just looked cool.
Yeah.
And so anyway, my dad saw Nash come out, and we had pretty decent seats, and it's a small arena anyway, so no matter where you sat, you could see everything. And he sees Nash come out, and I don't think he'd even ever heard of him before. And he was like, that guy looks like he's strong as an ox and tired as hell. And I'm like, yeah. That's probably 100% accurate. I can't tell you how he's feeling, but I think you're completely right, Dad. He just seems like a tired old man that's strong as an ox.
Yep. I've never really thought about that.
And this was obviously a lot later than 1995, but
yeah. Well, and he does, even though I know he was he is actually just under 7 feet. He's, just shoulders as wide as could be. And I think how, like, his style, I think, was very deliberate, for his size. Yeah. He wasn't trying to do moonsaults like Vader or Bigelow.
Right. He knew how to work like a big man, and he played to his strengths, and he concealed his weaknesses. He was a super smart wrestler.
He was the best super shredder. He doesn't need to be best everywhere. Like, he's just that big, hulking, very deliberate giant.
And that's why I think Vince was so enamored with him, because this was, with the whole steroid thing going on, and it's like you got a 7-footer who's like super handsome, charismatic, and he ripped, clean.
Yeah.
Like totally clean, and he looks like he looks. He's ripped, handsome, charismatic. He got to the point where he could cut a great promo. He couldn't at first, but he got there.
Yeah.
Like he checks all the boxes of everything Vince loves. You know?
Right around this time too, in the match, I know I kind of went off on a tangent too. That I
Yeah,
was
we
paying.
we totally got off track here, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, and great matches, and great performers and champions, and I can make you do that. But I just remember paying attention to how Nash was selling, because I remember with Brett and Luger from the year previously, you had very correctly noted that he had seemed to forget that he was beaten up backstage.
yeah, Luger didn't get the memo that you're supposed to sell injuries in pro wrestling.
Yeah. And so I was paying attention, and then I just remember, like, I think he might have just thrown Brett into the corner or something, and Vince said, "Oh, maybe Diesel was playing possum. His leg wasn't hurt that much." And I think that stuck out to me because of like how intentionally critical I was trying to be to see that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't specifically remember Vince saying that, and I don't remember what was happening when he said it, but at no point did I notice Diesel not selling.
Yeah.
Quite
Yep.
the contrary. I think Diesel always, I mean, he rode with Scott Hall and Shawn Michaels. Like, he's going to sell an injury. Like, that's, those are two of the guys he learned from. But
Yeah.
I did notice, and I thought about you immediately. I'll say what I'm going to say, and I'll throw it to you. He does the over-the-shoulder backbreaker to Brett. I'll let you take it because you
That's
criticized it last time they wrestled correctly.
that's my next note.
Yep.
um, it does look great.
Yeah, it's a great visual.
Yeah, and I want to say that that's actually a somewhat effective rest hold for both of them. That
If
is
you're as
not a
big
chin
and
lock.
strong as him, it probably doesn't take much out of you to hold Bret Hart on your shoulder.
Yeah, you just kind of got to balance them up there.
Yeah, so I guess if you're Kevin Nash, that probably could be considered a rest hold.
Yeah.
Most people could that would not be considered a rest hold holding, because you know Bret's a grown ass man.
Yeah.
He's solidly muscled, so most people it wouldn't take a break when you have him over your shoulder.
Yeah.
But I
But
just
yeah,
remember the last time these two wrestled, and he goes to do the over the shoulder backbreaker, which the setup looks inexplicably like the setup to the jackknife, and you're like, you got him up there enough to do the backbreaker, just follow through and turn it into a jackknife.
yeah,
Which
and
again, logically, you're right.
yep. And so I did have that thought here. There really was a lot going on, and so maybe I'm just trying to make excuses because of like being a huge Bret Hart fan. But I don't know. It is a great look. And Nash doesn't have a huge arsenal of moves, so it's fine. Um, right after Diesel gives Brett a big boot, and it is a big boot. And just getting that leg all the way up there with just how he's built and how huge that was. Um,
Yeah.
that was the next thing that kind of stuck out to me. Oh, back to the over the shoulder submission. How Brett kind of wiggles his way out of it, I think, is a great way
Yeah.
to move on from that. I do.
I did make a note. He goes for gorilla press slam, and Brett counters it into a pin. Which again, Brett had really cool like counters or ways that he kind of wiggle out of shit or counter shit. Like Brett was really clever with stuff like that.
Yeah.
Uh, this is I really like the spot, and Brett's done it something similar to this, I think, in every match with Diesel, and I love it every time, where he wraps the tape around Diesel's legs,
Yes.
around the ring post. That's so Brett. It's just really cool, and Yeah,
and,
I like that spot.
and it adds a whole other dimension to, if you're a 7-footer and you're wrestling Bret Hart, you're going to become very familiar with the ring post. Um,
Yeah,
and
and
so,
I like that, like Brett, if he was in there with Jeff Jarrett or Sean, he's not wrapping someone's legs around the ring post with tape. He can
yeah,
out wrestle them. But this, it's sort of like Brett has to resort to this because he's wrestling a fucking giant.
yeah,
So it's sort of like, just like when I watch these two wrestle, and I think about Brett, I just thinking tenacious. The word tenacious comes to mind when I think of the way Brett works with a guy like Diesel, and he does whatever it takes, including taping his legs around a ring post.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I had forgotten about that, and so when I saw Brett doing that, I'm like, oh yeah, this is uh, pretty clever. And so I marked out for that. I got a kick out of that.
yeah, and then we get like a lot of kind of vintage Hitman, the kind of stuff he does to set up for the sharpshooter. He does a really nice elbow off the second rope, which I always liked the way he did that move. It
Yeah,
just looked like he just really drove just the tip of his elbow right into you, and it looked painful. It looked believable. Um, he does a plancha on the outside, and Nash catches him, and
yeah.
then rams his back into the ring post.
I did notice he seemed to have catch Brett with much ease too.
And
Like
that's the thing.
I
Like,
didn't see him bend over or anything. It was just like catching a football. I don't,
yeah, and it's like it's crazy to think like, and I think as longtime wrestling fans, we kind of just take stuff like that for granted, and it's like he jumped from in the ring over the top rope, and it's a grown ass man coming down on you with just gravity, like, and he just catch it like it's a sack of potatoes, and it's like, I think because we watch so much wrestling, we kind of forget like these are grown men. They're like, you have to be so strong to do that.
Yep. And he makes it look easy. Like he didn't even, like buckle. Like I said, just like catching a football. And then um, he introduced Brett to his friend, the Post. I
Yeah,
imagine.
I mean, turnaround is fair play. Brett used the ring post. It's Diesel's turn.
Yep. Um, Now we're about to come up to uh, the first really significant finish for the
Yeah,
match.
so Nash hits the jackknife and then goes for a pin. And I think, and I'm curious your take on this. I don't know if it was a timing issue and it was shot kind of weird. It looked kind of like Brett kicked out as Sean ran in to interfere. That's what it looked like to me. It looked like he kind of did kick out, but the timing and the camera angle, I couldn't tell because it was right as Sean was interfering.
And Sean was booking it
Yeah,
down there. The referee was counting a little slow, but he was hitting one, I think, before Sean had cleared the back. And it's not a huge arena, but wow, did he make it down there? And the timing you would need to pull this off is, I I did see Brett. I was wondering if it was going to be like at WrestleMania 6 with Hogan and Warrior. Hogan kicks out, but it's just a split second too late. And
yeah.
this setup just kind of reminded me of that, but I'm not sure. And I don't know how the communication was to get everything in there, so I don't know.
And this was also a nice callback to when they worked last time, because Brett in promos would be like, I don't know if I can kick out if he's able to hit it. And
That's
even the
right.
promo he did before this
That's
match,
right.
he's saying, you're saying a lot of ifs. You're saying a lot of what ifs about, if he can hit it. We don't know. So I think it was a nice callback because it was sort of like they never let Nash hit it. and cover him to find out if Brett could kick out of it or not. Something always happened. So I thought this was a nice callback to that.
I'd never thought about that. I was thinking that maybe Brett was stirring just in case Sean didn't get there in time. But thinking back to his comments on there, I don't know if I can kick out. What if? What if?
Yeah, they
Sean
played that
is.
up a lot.
Yeah, it's like maybe they're gonna take the mystery away from that, and we're gonna find out. But Sean also ruins that
Yeah.
by coming in. That is brilliant. That is brilliant.
And that's, again, just really good storytelling where it's sort of like, for months, it's sort of like, can he kick out of the finish if he nails it? Because he's jackknifed Brett a bunch of times,
Yeah.
but it was either interference in a match or someone broke it up, so we never know if he hits it, can Brett kick out? So I thought that was a nice callback to, you know, we still
Yeah.
don't know if Brett can kick out, but it looked like he kind of did, but I couldn't tell.
Yeah. Yeah. We were, like I said, I was thinking, I wasn't even considering that. I was thinking maybe Brett what was just kind of getting ready in case Sean couldn't make it there in time. But you're right. He said that. I don't know if I can kick out. What if? What if? And
Yeah,
so
because I think
Sean,
even the promo he did before this, where he was talking to Pettengill, and Pettengill was like, "What if he hits it? What if like?" And he's saying, "You're saying a lot of what ifs," and
yeah,
so they did set this up nicely.
they sure did. Wow.
So,
Very. I love your insights and like
well, that's
observations.
why it's really cool that we're watching these shows chronologically. Because if we watch this cold without watching the last time they wrestled, we wouldn't have that context to why this was cool. So that's why it's cool that we're watching these chronologically, that we have
Yeah.
the backstory. Um,
What a story this is turning
yeah,
out to be too.
like months and months of, if he nails it, could Brett kick out? Like, that's good storytelling.
Yeah.
And I don't
Okay.
know, but I'm going to give credit to Pat Patterson for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I
I don't know that he deserves it, but I'm just going to assume that
yep.
whenever anything good happens, I just assume that Pat Patterson came up with it.
I think you're right. And taking a look at what has been happening in the last year and a half, I think you're
I heard when in you and Tony's last podcast, you watched that Grill and JR where Bischoff filled in. I
yeah.
love what Bischoff said when at some point it came up about um, people that Bischoff would have wanted to get from WWF during the Monday Night Wars era. And he was like, it wouldn't be Shawn, it wouldn't be Taker. If I could have gotten one person, it would have been Pat Patterson. If I could have poached one person, it would have been Patterson. Um, so I just want to
Yep.
put Pat over here.
Well, and I had seen that and saved it to watch later, but then when I was talking with you about that, like it, and it kind of made me more excited. So when I got off that day, um, and was listening, it was pretty cool. Yeah, so
um,
Sean books it to the ring.
yeah, yeah. Shawn runs in, breaks up what may or may not have been a kick out, um, starts beating down Diesel, um, and they just let the match continue.
Yeah, um,
Where that seems like a pretty blatant, you stop the match, DQ finish, Brett wins by DQ. In
and
any
we
other
had,
circumstance, Brett wins by DQ here.
and in the Intercontinental Championship match that kicked things off. See, I was wondering, do you think it was either foreshadowing or do you think it was them just trying to prime the audience to be prepared for and accept something like this?
I think it was probably priming them to, like, okay, this stuff can happen here, so later on,
Why
remember
wouldn't it?
that.
Yeah. And we would see things like this later on during Sean's run. Um,
Yep.
specifically with Vader. And to this day, I'm still not entirely sure which one of those was scheduled or planned to happen, and one where they just had to account for the temper tantrum.
Yeah, and it's one of those things about wrestling booking is very selective, where rules apply a certain way in one instance, and in another instance, it's inconvenient for those rules to apply, so they don't, and we change the rules.
Yeah.
It's like Roddy Piper. Whenever you think you have the answers, I change the questions. It's one of those type of things.
Yeah.
um,
So
so the match continues. Brett does not
yeah,
win by DQ. So the match continues. Brett's staying on the leg
yeah,
because that's what Brett does, man.
yep,
He's got the big man hurt.
yep. And during this next leg of this race, um, Brett seems to really turn up the intensity on the leg, and Nash is selling the shit. I mean, like
And that's
this.
the thing. Like, you look at matches like this, and like, because people give credit to Nash for being a big star and making an impact, but no one gives him the credit in the ring because he
Yeah,
can go, he can sell, his offense looks believable. Like, I think Nash gets a really bad rap as an in-ring performer because
agreed.
he was a really good big man,
Yeah,
and you see it in this match. Um, so Brett's working on the leg. Diesel turns it around for a bit. He does a really nice gut wrench suplex, which I always like that move. You don't see it all that often, but I just like visually, it's a cool looking move to me.
yeah.
Um,
I did note that, and I think just because of his size, that really cranks up the. Ooh, that must really hurt. Like it was a everything he does becomes a high impact move.
yeah, and it's funny because like Brett, like I know like guys like Brett and Sean are considered little guys by pro wrestling standards. I never really thought of Brett as a small guy just because of the way he worked.
Yeah,
Kind of like Benoit. I don't think of Benoit as a small guy because he was so fucking intense
yeah,
that even if he was a foot shorter than who he was working with, he's Chris Benoit, you know, and like that's how I think about Brett. But the way he worked with Diesel, he looked like a little boy.
yeah,
Like that backbreaker spot, like he looked like a child in there
yeah.
with Nash.
After the gut wrench, Diesel puts Brett into the post, and this is the first time I noticed that. And maybe it was because there was the first time they were talking about it on commentary, but Brett's been chopping down the tree at his leg. Diesel's
Yeah,
working on his back and his ribs, like that. There is a
yeah,
very deliberate plan of action
yep.
to soften Brett up for his finisher. I was you
And I like that type of logic, where you work on the body part that's most affected by your finish, and the other
yeah,
guy does the same. I like that. It's
yeah,
simple, but it makes sense. So yeah, I like that logic. Um, so Brett turns it around. We have the third ring post spot with Brett. The
yeah.
ring post gets a lot of action here. um, he does a chair shot on Diesel's legs. Did you notice people
Boo.
start to boo Brett? Uh,
Really boo him as
a little
well.
foreshadowing here.
Yeah,
Um,
I know. Yep, I was keeping right up with you. Uses the
you
chair.
don't boo Brett in 1995, but
No.
so that's why that stood out to me so much. Um,
Yeah. And then Vince was like, maybe he missed. That's why he's not getting disqualified. Like I thought Vince kind of tripped up a little bit here, trying to convey the story to the people at home. Um, again, just you know, really trying to pay attention, maybe being overly critical to be fair. But yeah, he nails that chair, and wow,
yeah,
it was people were not having that from Brett.
yeah, that really stood out to me. Um, Gets Nash back in the ring, gets the sharpshooter on. I always loved the visual whenever Brett got Nash in the sharpshooter because Brett, like Nash's legs are the size of Brett. So
Yeah.
like Brett had to hook the legs from like up here. Like normally he'd hook the legs down here, but like Nash's legs are so damn big, he's like has to hook his legs from up here to get the sharpshooter on. It was
Yep.
just a cool visual. So Diesel's in the sharpshooter, and then Owen runs out, interferes. Um, I do kind of like that. Like we've got two baby faces here, and they both have enemies.
Yeah.
So it's like Diesel's got people that want to fuck with him. Brett has people that want to fuck with him. So Sean came out to fuck with Diesel. Now we got Owen coming out to fuck with Brett. They both want to ruin the match for him. I do like, just from a storytelling point of view, especially with two baby faces in a title match,
Yeah.
and then heels come out and ruin it for both of them. Um,
Yep.
I like that. Uh,
Yeah. So Owen comes out, and again, you have Brett taking the jackknife. Sean comes out.
yeah,
Diesel's in the sharpshooter. Owen comes out, and so
yeah,
now we're back to an even playing field.
yeah,
And this match must continue. And I just love the Fink's inflection.
yeah.
He just brought the crowd along with him, no matter just how he was going to say something. I don't know, that kind of stuck out there, and I
Yeah,
thought that was kind of cool.
hearing those announcements from anybody else doesn't have the impact as it does when you hear it in that voice.
Yep,
Like you want to hear those announcements from Howard Finkel.
you sure do.
He needs to be the one to tell me
Yeah,
that the match will continue. Like, or the new World
new.
Wrestling Federation champion. Like, any new.
I think there is a Facebook page just for the Fink saying new. Like I saw something, maybe it was just like a meme, but yeah. So I think that we're back to like an even playing field.
Yeah.
Um, and this match must continue. And then we get Brett and Diesel back in the center of the ring, and Brett's going back to the very beginning of this match. He just starts winding up and throwing bombs at Diesel.
Yeah. um, well, there's also the turnbuckle pads taken off.
That's
Um,
right.
I didn't make a note of who takes it off.
I
So that's
believe it was
bad.
Owen. Didn't Owen
Okay,
take it off?
yeah, I think you're right. Um, and so yeah, both guys are down after the sharpshooter gets broken up. Owen takes the turnbuckle off. Match is ordered to continue. Um, Diesel crawls to cover Brett. Brett kicks out. Um, and then Diesel goes to ram Brett into the turnbuckle. Brett counters it. And yeah, that's when Brett decides to beat a 7-footer in a fist fight. Um, Diesel gets in some nasty forearm shots. He had good forearms. His
Yeah.
forearm shots looked really good because he just had that big upper body and he put everything into it. I always liked his forearm shots. Um, let's see. I like Brett gets, so yeah, the forearm shots, and then Brett gets knocked out of the ring and he's hanging upside down and his feet are hooking the rope. He's hanging upside down by the ropes. Just a really cool visual. I like that.
Yeah.
He goes for a chair. Brett gets away, and then Brett's feigning a knee injury in the ring. Diesel comes in, uh, hooks a small package, and Diesel kicks out. I don't like that.
No?
Well, I like it here, but I don't like it because of the Survivor Series match that these two have,
That's
where he does that and beats him.
That was my next note, and I wanted to kind of pick your brain again too. If this is well, is it foreshadowing, and how come you don't? Like,
Well, I don't like it because he tries it here and fails, then he tries it again later on and it succeeds. It's like, so Diesel should have seen it coming next time, but he doesn't because Brett does it here unsuccessfully. You know what I mean?
see, I kind of got a feeling, like with Brett and Piper, and then Brett and Austin, at Survivor Series, kind of like a callback to his Intercontinental title match with Piper, and so I had gotten
Well,
kind
I
of a
think that
similar
was
feeling.
effective because it's a different guy. But here he does it here to Diesel,
Yeah,
and Diesel gets out of it. But then he does it later on to Diesel, the same spot with the same guy, and it works.
that is very,
I think it should be
very
the
true.
other way around, where maybe if he beats Diesel here with that, which I know that's not what happens, but if he were to beat, like, you get away with it once, and then maybe he tries it again later down the road, and Diesel gets out of it. That makes sense for in the story. Okay, you got away with it one, the fool me once thing, but this time, he does it, it doesn't work, but then he tries it again later and it does work.
Yeah,
Logically, that doesn't work for me.
well, and it's like, what are they trying to tell with that?
Well, the thing is,
At the match later on too.
I'm quite confident that they do not have the finish for a match that has not happened yet. You know what I
That's
mean?
that's
So,
very fair. Yeah,
like, I'm pretty sure they don't know that when you do lose the title, you are going to lose it to Brett, and this is how you're going to lose. The match hasn't been booked yet, and the finish hasn't. Maybe the match has. Maybe they know where they're going, but the finish certainly hasn't been booked yet. So
that's
they
true.
couldn't have known. But just with me knowing what will happen,
Yeah,
it's like, that's
I'm
not.
actually even more excited to kind of tear that match apart later on now too.
Yeah, but here it worked fine in the context of this match.
It was a good little spot.
Yeah, it's good for here, but then just knowing what we know that's going to happen at Survivor Series later this year, it's not as good. But for the context of this match, it was a very nice spot.
Yep.
With him playing possum, I like it. Um,
Then um, we get everybody coming down all over again.
well, then, okay, so yeah, he kicks out. Then both of them tumble him into Hebner, and he goes down.
Yeah,
So then Sean, Backlund, Owen, Jarrett, and the roadie all come out and just beat up both guys. The crowd's loving this. They pop big for this. Um, a bunch of officials come out and they rule this match a draw.
yeah. So I can't. I didn't remember what they had officially ruled it as or what the Fink had said it was,
They
but
said it was a draw, yeah.
yeah, and not a no contest or anything. A draw, because a draw is signifying something very specific that they. I
Yeah.
don't know. It being considered a draw kind of bugged me a little bit. I don't know.
Well, I think because it's two baby faces,
Oh yeah,
you know, they don't want to have, even if it's like a DQ finish, there's a winner and a loser. But if it's a draw, both baby faces, like, I think they're trying to keep both these guys strong. So it's like, that's why, Owen fucking things up for Brett, Sean's fucking things up for Diesel.
yeah,
They both, it keeps both baby faces strong instead of like one person gets a DQ victory that could give one of them maybe a bit of an edge, I guess you could
yeah.
look at it that way. And
No, that
I
that
think they
makes
didn't want to give either one an edge. Um, I will say I think because of all the interference and the fact that there's people ruining that want to ruin things specifically for Brett and people who want to ruin things specifically for Diesel, they did it really created a good atmosphere of chaos. Like when everybody hits the ring at the end before they just throw the match out. and the crowd's popping. It really is like, oh my god, this is like I can just picture Gorilla Monsoon. This is pandemonium. Like, it does really have an atmosphere of chaos that they convey very effectively.
Well, and when they said it was a draw, it was due to the inability of the official to control the match. It
Right.
wasn't because of the interference. It was, that fell and kind of rested on the ref.
Yeah, and it's like we tried this once, we tried it twice, we just can't. We've had enough. We just can't do it. Um,
Yeah.
and I think it's a good way to keep both these guys looking strong. Especially, I think it's very important that both these guys are baby faces. So I think it's a good way to keep both these guys coming out of this looking strong. Where it's like, we tried, guys. We
Yeah.
both tried. We tried to have a good, clean fight. It's not Brett's fault it didn't happen. It's not Nash's fault it didn't happen. They tried to have a good, clean fight and see who the better man was.
And
Um,
over and over.
yeah. um, and then so Backlund hooks Brett in the crossface. Um, everyone jumps in here. Diesel cleans house and helps Brett up. And I think that's
Yes.
kind of interesting that Backlund's crossface really got over, huh? Like they
Yeah.
really put that move over between Brett being in it for 45 minutes in the title match, and then Brett just went through a grueling title match, and then Backlund gets him in it, and Brett's down selling it. But they really put the crossface over here.
They did.
So yeah, Diesel cleans house and then helps Brett up. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. This was kind of the bow on the match to it just seemed like they were trying to make sure that they got the right uh, point across, that you had these match, everything. It's a draw. It's because of the official, and so how these guys are sent off from this match is going to be very significant.
And I really like too. After Diesel helps Brett up, uh, Nash extends his hand, and Brett has this look on his face like he's contemplating what to do.
Yeah,
And Brett kind of has a little flash of like, "Fuck it, we tried. We tried to have a good, clean match. Let's just tonight's a bust. We tried." So he's just sort of like, "Fuck it." They have a handshake. They have a hug. Um,
yeah,
both guys are both selling like they've been through a war. You
yep,
know,
yeah. It was very classy, despite the well, even like the tone in the beginning when Todd was interviewing them. Um, there was a lot of tension. There was a chair that was involved in this match, and so um,
yeah.
I I I think you're right. Now this is really a way to say, hey, we tried everything we could. Uh, this is just going to be a war for another day.
Yeah, and like it's interesting because usually when there's interference, it's like the heel has a manager at ringside who interferes, or a tag team partner interferes. Like this, like the interference wasn't like Diesel had someone to come save him, or Brett had someone come out to save him. Like
Yeah,
neither one of them wanted interference. Neither one of them were responsible for the interference. And
yeah,
I think that's a cool distinction, that it was their enemies that interfered to fuck with them. No one was no one was interfering to help one of the competitors.
yeah. It wasn't meant to give anybody an advantage. It was meant to
Yeah.
just keep you down.
And neither of the competitors were responsible for the interference. It
Yeah,
didn't help either one of them, and both guys got in their finish. So I think, again,
that's
this
a good point.
this has Patterson's fingerprints all over it, to
Yeah,
me. Like from what I know of Pat,
yep,
I think it's just a really good story. With If you're going to have a kind of a fuck finish where there's no winner, this is the way to do it, especially with two baby
I
faces.
think you are right on the money,
Yeah,
especially with knowing how. again, going back to WrestleMania 6, how he had laid out Hogan and Warrior so that nobody would get too ahead of the other. It was very
Yeah,
even throughout, and taking a look at how many different moving parts were in this match to end up where we did with these white hot feuds. Both guys are either exactly where they were or evenly ahead of where they were when the match started. I think you're right. I think that's Patterson all day long.
and it's cool because like I like both these guys, and um, at the end of this match, like normally you don't have a winner. That's disappointing. You want a winner and a loser. You don't have a winner here, but I left this match feeling good. Like
Yeah,
seeing the hug and I really like Brett's little expression when Diesel extends his hand to him and Brett takes a minute to think about it, and just his little look where it's just like, all right, fuck it, tonight's a bust. We tried,
yeah. Like he just kind
and
of
then
shrugged his
they
shoulders, like,
and
"Oh
then it
well."
was just hugs all around. And so even though we didn't get a winner, I left this match feeling good,
Yeah,
which is that's hard to do, and they did it here. So kudos to them.
yeah,
And I love anytime Brett and Diesel wrestle.
yeah,
The match itself was very good, and it's hard
yeah,
to pull this off well, and they did. So
yeah.
kudos to,
Well done, Pat.
yeah, presumably Pat. I mean, I don't know that, but
Yeah,
again, I just assume Pat gets the credit for kind of everything good.
yeah, yeah. That was yeah. Watching that match was definitely the highlight of this event for me.
Yeah,
So many notes and everything. That was great.
and I really dug the with all the interference. And this is something I hear Bischoff talk about that he did very successfully during Nitro, is the whole like he wanted everything to be unpredictable. And this, I really like the atmosphere of chaos with the heels interfering, not on anyone's behalf, but just because they want to fuck up things for the like. It just seemed like pandemonium and chaos, and it was a cool atmosphere that they created here that was done well. And
And they were both victims of that.
that's the thing. Both guys were victims. Nobody got helped from the interference. And that's what I like about this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so cool.
Um, I'm
All
going
right.
to take a quick bathroom break before we continue. If that's cool.
Yeah, I will as well.
All right.
Be back in 5 minutes.
Okay.
All right.
Hey, yo. You all
So
come
now
here
we
to see
have.
WCW?
Yeah. Next we have the. Well, there's a little bit of vignettes and
Yeah, we got
interviews.
some backstage segments here. Yeah, Todd Pettengill is in Pam Anderson's dressing room. She's changing behind a little wall, and I think she asked him for some kind of article of clothing, and she's poking her head out, and he's putting her over as, you know, this bombshell. And
Not a hard sell to make.
no, no. Then we have Stephanie Wyatt. She interviews the 1-2-3 Kid and Bob Holly about the tag tournament match, the finals coming up.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, the next match, it's Bam Bam and Tatanka, accompanied by DiBiase, against Bob Holly and the 1-2-3 Kid. That's one of those kind of thrown together tag teams where you forget that they were the champs for like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yep. Because I absolutely did forget that they were champs for 5 minutes.
Yeah. So this was just kind of there. Um, what did they say for the reason there was the tournament? They say like one of the
The.
guns got injured in a rodeo
Yep.
or something.
Yep. And
Um,
so the tag team titles were held up because of that. And
I know Billy really did do rodeos. I'm pretty sure Billy actually did do that.
yeah. Um.
Was
I
that a
don't.
shoot? Do you know, or like,
No.
did
No.
they
Because
actually? I didn't think it was, but
no. I know that they did. I actually want to say. I don't know. I listened to Bruce Pritchard a lot, but I want to say there might have been an issue with like a wellness test or something, but I'm not really sure.
okay.
But yeah, I mean, and I think this is a good commentary on what the tag team division was like and how it was being managed back then.
Yeah, this was not the best era of tag team wrestling. Like for me, um, there was the golden era where you had, the Bulldogs, the Hart Foundation, the Rockers, the Rougeos, Demolition, Legion of Doom, like Orient Express, like
Yeah,
Powers of Pain. Like there were so many teams, and they were all good, and they were all different. Like that was such a fun time for tag team wrestling. And then it was kind of this was just a drought of good tag teams, and then I think it's not until the Hardys and Edge and Christian met each other that
yeah,
we
and
saw the tag team division resurrected.
well, and for all of the, well, at least for me anyway, for all the kind of little snarky jokes I make, I love tag team wrestling.
Oh yeah,
I
I do
would,
too.
yeah, but I just think it's telling when you need to have a tournament for one of your championships and you don't have a well deep enough to pull people out. Like,
Yeah, it's the this is the finals, and it's two thrown together tag teams.
yeah,
There's not even any established long term tag teams in the
nope,
finals.
nope.
Um,
Like I remember at the beginning of the year with the Rumble and then Elimination Chamber, they had to bring Goldberg back to fill all the spots. Ronda Rousey has been sticking around to be fair, so
yeah,
but it did seem kind of, it's just random. It's like, don't they have enough women in their division without having to bring her back? This is the Elimination Chamber. You got to bring Goldberg out of retirement for like the eighth time.
yeah,
Like I said, I'm
and
I'm
that's the
really
thing.
not trying to be snarky, but I get that same feeling with this tag team match. I don't know.
And that's the thing. I like all four of these guys individually, but these are two
Yes.
thrown together tag teams, and they're in the finals. Like, um,
Yeah, this is
so
the finals for your tag team championship.
yeah, and it's two thrown together tag teams. Um, the first, I didn't take a whole lot of notes on this because I really didn't care that much. Even
Yeah.
though, like I said, I like both these guys, or all four of these guys as individuals, but I really didn't care about this. I knew what was going to happen. I wasn't particularly excited about what was going to happen, so I didn't take a ton of notes. But there was a spot. Bam Bam popped up. 1, 2, 3 kid. I swear his fucking head almost hit the roof of the arena. He got up so high
Yep.
and countered it into a Hurricane Rana on the way down. That was fucking beautiful.
Yes, it was. Not only did you not really see a Hurricane Rana, but from a smaller guy to a big dude like there, that came off real smooth. Really
Bam
smooth.
Bam popped him up so high. I think of, like that Lawler joke he would make on commentary sometimes. Like, he got so high up, he needed a flight attendant, or he needed a stewardess. Yeah, it was 95. He needed there were stewardesses back then.
Yeah.
He got so high on that one, he needed a stewardess to accompany him. Like,
Yep.
he got some hang time on that, and a really nice Hurricane Run on the way down. That was really, really nice.
Yeah. And again, it's with guys that were just kind of thrown together in a palate cleanser before the Royal Rumble. And
Yeah,
that is not meant in any way to be a slight against all of these guys who are good, who were underappreciated.
yeah.
But you need to give me I did notice they were talking about some of the matches that they had before here, leading up to the finals of the tournament.
Mhm.
And I believe it was just kind of I wrote slip of the jargon. Vince said that Bam Bam squashed the kid in their match, and squashed in wrestling actually
Right.
does have some kind of a meaning.
Yeah.
Um, like I don't, it still works either way, but I was just wondering if that was kind of a slip of um, how they were putting that over.
Yeah. There was another spot I liked. Holly and Kid do a pair of crossbodies from the top rope, and they both get caught, kind of in stereo. I thought that was
Oh,
kind of cool. Um,
huh,
that Tatanka and Bam Bam respectively caught them as they each did crossbodies from the top rope, and they both
yeah.
got caught. That was kind of cool. Bob Holly's in there for a while, gets beat up. Uh, another spot I liked. There's quite a few spots I liked in a match that I didn't like, but so yeah, Holly's in there for a while getting beat up, and he's really selling that he's totally out of it because they're both working on him for a while. He goes into the wrong corner and tries to tag Tatanka. I thought that was a cool spot because
I missed that.
he's so beat up he didn't even know what corner is in. He's trying to tag Tatanka in. Um, that was a nice touch. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely missed that.
Um,
Um, at the end, it was an interesting win. I really had forgotten that this existed. Um, and if Tony were here, he could help me out. But Bob Holly, and I want to say it was Bart Gunn, would go on to become like the new Midnight
the new
Express or
yeah,
something.
New Midnight Express. Yeah.
Yeah, for like half an hour.
Yep.
And so this, again, just guys thrown together.
Yeah.
Nothing really. I fully do appreciate all these guys. I did notice, or I did think back, Bam Bam and Tatanka were feuding for a while before Tatanka joined the Million Dollar Corporation.
Yeah.
And so
Yep.
it was kind of interesting seeing them uh, as tag partners in a tournament not too terribly long after that.
Yeah, because I think one of the King of the Rings that we covered, the two of them squared off, and yeah, they did have a feud for a while. Um,
Yeah, that was '93,
until
I think.
yeah, and then Tatanka turned heel and hooked up with DiBiase, and now they're partners. Yeah, the thing is, these guys individually are all talented. I like them all. I feel bad for Bob Holly because he definitely paid his dues before he finally got over.
He sure
Um,
did.
but it's just like though I like all four of these individuals, they were featured. The way they were featured here is just some thrown together tag teams. Um, but
And
yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
I was
okay,
going to say, I think that might be a little bit of a commentary on with all of the crap that was going on in the new generation. The fact that you do have guys like this that are just kind of lying around with nothing to do. I think that maybe is like a remnant of the land of the big men era, kind of looming over, maybe like Kid and Holly. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is this does seem like a thrown together nothing match, but then it's sort of like it actually isn't because it's setting up for the main event of WrestleMania. So it actually does have a purpose.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's true.
Even though it feels like a nothing kind of thrown together match, um, it does set up for the main event of WrestleMania. This,
Yeah, you're
this is
right.
how we're set. This is how we're setting up to Mania. Um, so yeah, Holly's getting beat up for a while. Kid gets the hot tag. He comes in, gets some really nice offense on both Bam Bam and Tatanka. Bigelow goes up to Moonsault Kid. At the same time, Tatanka, who apparently does not have any ring awareness here, goes to run the ropes and he knocks Bigelow down. Bigelow falls, takes a nice bump, and
Yeah,
just kind of a miscommunication between Bigelow and Tatanka. So he trips up Bigelow. Well, Bigelow's going for the moonsault. Bigelow falls. Kid covers him and gets the pin. Bob Holly and 1, 2, 3 Kid are the new tag champs. I wrote down kind of a convoluted finish to a solid but mostly unexceptional match.
yeah.
Um, but again, this is setting up for. Um,
More celebrity involvement.
yeah, so Bigelow gets pinned. He looks distraught. He's bleeding from the mouth. I was trying to think of whenever I see someone bleeding, I kind of wonder where it happened. It might have been on one of those kicks from Kid
Yeah,
because he swung those, man. He, for a guy his size in there with a bunch of giants, he swung those kicks. So
yeah.
maybe that's where he caught him in the mouth with a kick. Um, the fans start heckling Bam Bam. Bam Bam goes to leave. He glances over at Lawrence Taylor, who's laughing at him.
And there was Vince again in one of his not so subtle, heavy-handed expositions for what story's going on. He says, "Imagine being the guy who's laughing at Bam Bam, saying,
Yeah.
"Ha ha, Bam Bam, you lost," just waiting for him to go over to LT."
Yeah. Vince does not give enough credit to his fan base that he thinks we need it. That we need storylines spoon fed to us like that. Um,
Yeah.
but that's Vince. Uh, I will say Lawrence Taylor did a good job of like
Yes.
he's chuckling and then Bam Bam confronts him and then he's just sort of like, "Nah, man, it's cool. I'm sorry." Like, you know, tries to make the peace. He does a good job with that.
Yeah.
Tries to shake his hand like, "All right, I'm sorry. Like, we're cool, man." Like, Bigelow shoves him, and then the crowd starts chanting for Lawrence Taylor, and we have our main event at Mania.
LT sprung right up too. He looked
Yeah.
like a pro football player getting back up.
Oh yeah.
Um,
um, so this story made sense. It was, I guess, a good way, as good a way as you could do to set up for this match. You
yeah.
know.
And then we had a couple other uh, little clips from there leading up to the Rumble match.
Yeah, they show the Diesel spot from the previous year's Royal Rumble, which I hope it is. I don't know if it's still known as that, but I know for a long time, whenever someone just clears house, I know for a long time that was known as the Diesel spot in honor of Rumble '94. I don't know if it's still known as that, but
It might be known as the Kane spot.
well, I think when Kane did, as far as I know, it was known as the Diesel spot. Like, okay, Kane comes in, he does the Diesel spot. Like, I know they did
Yeah.
that with Austin, they did it with Lesnar and Rumbles. So yeah, they showed Diesel just decimating everyone in Rumble '94. They do a Shawn promo where he takes credit for eliminating Diesel, even though it was a bunch of guys that threw him out. I guess that weak little kick from Shawn was the thing that put it over the top. So Shawn's taking credit for it. They show clips of Lex and Brett with their dual elimination.
Yep.
Lex gives a frustrated promo, which probably was not much of a stretch for him in this time.
Yeah, I had noted that, it was a great Lex promo, and he was kind of saying it's like, hey, I'm tired of being, down the card. I want to be in the main.
Yeah.
I'm good enough to. And
yeah, I don't think that was much of a stretch for him. I don't think he had to, plumb the depths of his acting ability to come up with, to generate that type of frustration. I'm sure that was a shoot. Then they go to Vince, and Vince apologizes to Lawrence Taylor for the incident. That seemed sincere. He handled it the way that he would if that were a shoot.
Yeah,
I'd like to apologize for Lawrence Taylor for, like it he
it
handled
came
it.
off great.
Yeah.
And even though he is just an announcer and really unbeknownst to almost everybody, like the owner, the camera came in and kind of turned his chair around when he said that. I mean, that really that was good for all of like the heavy-handed, not so subtle things. He pulled that off with a lot of grace.
Yeah, he made it seem legit, where it's sort of like, no, he's an honored guest at ringside, and one of our performers put his hands on a fan. That's unacceptable. Like, he handled it very much like it was a shoot.
Yeah,
So
like there
credit to
might.
him for that.
Yeah, like there actually might be liability involved.
Right. Yeah. So then Pamela Anderson is introduced. Uh, they say that she will accompany the Royal Rumble winner to the ring at WrestleMania. She comes out looking good. Crowd's into it. Um, I wrote down that Howard Finkel and Jerry Briscoe seem giddy, just being in the presence of Pam Anderson. Um, and I just wrote down once again, like, how big of a deal she was back then.
Yeah.
I think people nowadays that weren't around back then might not
Appreciate
realize how, if they watched it, they wouldn't realize how big of a deal she was back then.
Yeah.
So then we have the Royal Rumble match itself. Number one, of course, is Shawn Michaels. He gets theme music. They do cut to Pam. She seems to like what she sees.
Yeah. Yeah, she sure does.
He is the Heartbreak Kid, after all. Shawn was looking good here.
Yeah, and you could also see like all of like from the very beginnings of like the Heartbreak Kid, he's had a pretty similar style, but um, I and maybe it's just like hindsight, but I feel like even when he came out, he had uh, a more earned feeling of confidence instead of just cocky uh, showing off. It's like this is going to be, the beginnings of he's being put into that top tier.
Yeah, he knows where this
Finally,
goes. So
yeah,
he knows he's going over. He's going coast to coast, in
yeah.
the Rumble, and he's uh, going to almost main event WrestleMania. We'll talk about it next week. Uh, and then, so number two, we have Bulldog. I dig the jacket he has here. I made a note. Like,
Yeah.
I just thought he looked good. It was a cool jacket he had that he came out with. Shawn jumpstarts the match, which,
And
if you're in a Rumble, maybe that's not the best idea,
yeah,
but that's a Shawn thing to do.
when Shawn first got in there, Vince said, "Well, there's no way that Shawn Michaels will win now."
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure that's like word for word what he said, and then him and King are talking because King said that Shawn Michaels was his pick.
Yep. And that's stuff that they would do a lot. That that's stuff the announcers would do at all the Rumbles, where the earlier guys, like someone like a Heenan or Ventura, if it was a heel that drew an early number, they'd be like, oh, they'd put over the early entrance and stuff.
That's true.
So it's just when Vince does it, it seems a bit more unsubtle. But,
Yeah.
and then Vince on commentary talks about that this is going to be the fastest, most furious, or I forget the verbiage, but the most fast and furious Royal Rumble, because this one, it is 60 seconds between the entrances, and I fucking hate that.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is probably my least favorite Royal Rumble match, despite me being a Shawn guy, and that Shawn is the first man in and the last man out. I do not like the 60 seconds between entrance. There's two reasons why I really do not like this Rumble match, and that is one of them. It's too fast, especially specifically now that I'm taking notes about the show. I'm like writing
Yeah.
notes. It's like, oh fuck, someone else is coming out. I didn't even finish what I was writing about the last guy.
Yeah.
But it's too fast. I don't like it. I like the 90 seconds or the 2 minutes because I want a Rumble match to be drawn out.
Yeah. You want suspense
In
and a
60
story to be
seconds in
told.
between, it's too quick. I don't like.
Yeah.
Um,
I also did take a look at how let's see. So somebody had compiled the list of how long it took for a lot of the guys to get to the ring once the buzzer went off
right.
till when the next one came out. And to their credit, most of these were like it was a legitimate 60 seconds between each one. Like I know a lot of times it's just an implied 2 minutes or 90 seconds, but with this one, it really was 60 for just about every number.
Well, I've heard Conrad and Bruce talk about Royal Rumbles, and they talk about Titan time. That the intervals would be on Titan time.
Yeah.
Depending on what was happening in between. But this, I wrote out, I hate the 60-second intervals. I feel like a Royal Rumble should be a marathon, not a sprint, is what I wrote down. And this just seemed too fast. So, yeah, Sean and Bulldog are going at it. Number 3 is Eli Blue. Number 4 is Duke Drosy. I made a note that Sean's in really good shape here.
Yeah.
Um,
See, I had started to keep track of everybody who was coming in and coming out, and I know that you've been way more on top of that than I have, and so since this one was a lot shorter, um, I loosely kept up with who was going in and who was going out, but tried to pay more attention to like the overall flow of the of the match and what was going on either at ringside or with the guys in the ring.
oh, okay.
So I'm not entirely sure how you had
Well,
gone about.
I covered this the way I did the other Rumbles, where I'm like writing down the entrances and the eliminations as they happen, and then making any notes of something, anything noteworthy as it happens, which means I have to pause it a lot, especially at 60-second intervals. But
Yeah.
yeah, so Duke Drosy comes out 4th. 5th is Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey, which I talked about in the last show. One of my favorite names. Just it's fun to say, just Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey. Um, and I talked about last time. I kind of like the Heavenly Bodies. I don't know why. I just kind of do. Uh, I just like saying Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey. So
It does
he,
roll off the tongue
yeah.
pretty nicely.
And one of the spots I always enjoy is listening when King is on commentary. I like listening to his predictions and how often they change throughout the course of a match. That's just kind of a fun thing I look forward to whenever Lawler calls a Rumble match.
He played really well off of Vince, I thought, on commentary this time
Yeah.
too.
Yep. Yeah, those two had good chemistry. Um, Sione comes out sixth. Um, I did notice, and we've mentioned it so many times during this show, how heavy-handed Vince is. He kind of tells you what's going to happen before it happens. Vince really drives home that both feet need to hit the ground to be eliminated. Um, just tell me Sean's going to win.
Yeah.
Because only one foot hits there. He, but Vince really drives that home several times here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, the first elimination of the match, Bulldog eliminates uh, Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey. I guess that's
Mm-hmm.
the last time we'll be able to say his name here. Uh, Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey. Eliminated Bulldog. um, see, coming in number 7 is Pritchard.
Yep.
I made a note that, Sean, every single Rumble that Sean is in, he spends most of it just tied up in the ropes, hanging from stuff. Um, Sean really puts in the work,
Yes. Yes, he
doing
does.
his best octopus impression, just wrapping limbs around ropes and half hanging out of the ring. Doink comes out number 8 to a big
The
pop.
doink was over. Yeah.
Yeah, he gets a big pop. So, yeah, Doink was over. Not over so much was number 9, Quang.
And I was starting to wonder when Savio Vega showed up. Because when I saw Quang here, I could have sworn I had seen Savio recently, maybe in like the last event. I'm not sure.
He was one of those guys, he deserved more, Savio.
Yes.
For his talent, he was one of those guys that he deserved better than he got.
Yeah.
And he's one of those guys that I don't think gets the credit he deserves because he was a talented guy and he kind of was never given much to work with. Um, Quang, uh, you know,
Yeah.
he had some really good matches with Austin.
Yeah.
Soon after Austin came in, like the strap match, those two had good chemistry, I thought. But I always thought Savio deserved better.
Yeah. No,
Um,
very solid, very dependable.
and it's funny, I made a note when Quang came out because we got Quang, we got Doink, the Blue Brother, and I'm sitting there like, is this a gimmick Royal Rumble? Like, is this the first gimmick Rumble?
Yeah.
Uh, Number 10 is Rick Martel. Always nice to see him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That
it
was a
was,
nice little surprise for me.
yeah. Well, that's one of the things I look forward to, and I know we've talked about it with Rumbles, is I like seeing they always have a couple people that come back. People that are like retired or semi-retired that you haven't seen in a while, and they'll bring them in to just kind of get a payday and have a nice little spot. And
Yeah. Surprise entrance.
yeah, and I like that. It was cool too because when Martel came out, I don't know if it was Vince or Lawler, said that this was the 7th appearance in a Rumble for Rick Martel, and I thought that was kind of cool.
So he had to have been in every one, I believe.
Yeah,
Because
because
it was
there.
88, 89, or 95. Yeah, so that would put him in every one then.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I thought that was cool that they mentioned it was his 7th appearance in a Rumble, and he was one of those guys that was usually in there for a long time,
Yeah.
putting in the work. Like he was never you come in and get thrown out. He was usually in there for a while. Um, Owen comes out, number 11, and on his way to the ring, Brett comes out and just beats the shit out of him, which is a nice callback to, um, the title match earlier. And Brett, it looked legit, man. Brett looked like he was angry.
Yep.
It wasn't your typical, like, I'm going to interfere. Like, Brett meant that shit.
Yep. He surely did.
Um, Coming out 12th is Timothy Well, and I'm like, oh, well done.
Well done. And I actually had missed that he came out, and one of my very critical comments I wrote at the end when I was kind of surmising the event, I'm like, they had done, but not well, and well was in there.
Well, I think, and again, this goes back to having 60 seconds between entrances. If it was longer, Brett could have come out, fucked up Owen's entrance, finished that up, and then, you know what I mean? With that short of an interval, when you have things like Brett coming out and doing this, there's not much time that by the
Yeah,
time Owen comes out, gets halfway down the thing, then Brett runs out and he's beating him, and everyone's paying attention to that. And you know, you're not paying attention to who the next entrant is because it's such a short interval.
yeah,
Um, when Timothy Well came out, my heart sank because I was reminded of the existence of Well Done, and that just made me really sad.
yeah. Even
Like my
revisiting,
heart really did sink. I'm like,
uh,
oh, Well Done exists. I forgot that. Oh, it really made me more upset than I should have been that I was reminded of their existence.
well done, the Heavenly Bodies, the Beverly Brothers, all of these.
Like I said, I'll defend the Heavenly Bodies because I just, for some reason that I can't explain, I kind of dig them. Um, but yeah, it just I got more upset that I was reminded of the existence of Well Done than I probably should have been. But it really, I was just like, oh, like I really did, like I probably audibly groaned that I was reminded that they existed.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so Brett beats up Owen. Owen gets in the ring. Bulldog eliminates him.
really quick.
Yeah, which makes sense. Brett beat him up, so and Bulldog was on Brett's side at this time, so made sense. Sean eliminates Duke Drosy. Bulldog eliminates Timothy Well. Sione eliminates Rick Martel. Sean eliminates Pritchard, and Quang eliminates Doink. So there's a
Yeah,
lot of eliminations kind of back to back. And I always enjoy in Rumbles the ebb and flow of, okay, the ring's really filling up, and then there's a bunch of eliminations, and you see it dwindle down. I always enjoy seeing that in Rumble matches. That's
yeah.
always fun for me. Like, I like when the ring fills up, I like when it clears out.
I
And they
did
have a lot
feel
of fun with that over the years with different ways of doing that.
for sure. I did feel like though this mass exodus seemed really rushed, probably because of the shortened time. Um, like I think I was like taking notes, and I looked up, and like seven guys were just gone.
Yeah, it happened very quickly, and again, it this whole Rumble feels so rushed, and I guess that's because they wanted to make it fast and furious. Um, I didn't like it. And also, Eli Blue and Sione go out together. I think it was like some kind of double clothesline thing, and they both go out together.
Yeah,
Then Luke comes in. Bushwhacker Luke comes in at 13. Sean eliminates him. I always like his spots, the Bushwhacker spots in the Rumble because they make they make something out of it that he never lasts long.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so Sean eliminates Luke immediately, and it gets down to Sean and Bulldog again. And that's kind of, I think that's why they did it, is to sort of highlight Sean
Yeah.
and Bulldog because they both go coast to coast here.
Yep.
Um, so I get why they did that, and it's sort of cool just seeing those two guys. And it's like, oh, it's the same two guys that started. And it's down to just the two of them again. Then Jacob Blue comes out at 14. Sean eliminates him. Sean gets a lot of eliminations in this Rumble.
Yep.
Um, 15 is Bundy. 16 is Mo. Bundy eliminates Mo. I like it at one point. Sean just kind of just says fuck it, and he rests while Bundy and Bulldog go at each other. I don't know why people don't do that more in Rumble matches. Just hang out and let other people fight it out. Like that should happen
Yeah.
more in Rumble matches.
Yeah. I mean, Jericho
If you
did
can do
that
it, you know.
for like half the match one year.
Yeah. Um, Mabel comes out 17th. And once again, we have, the big guys squaring off with Bundy and Mabel. Everyone pops for that because it's a cool visual. Butch comes out 18th. Mabel eliminates Bundy. Shawn eliminates Butch. Um, then we have Lex out at number 19.
Yeah. Um, this was when, again, it was one of those moments for me where uh, they trimmed the time, and it really did kind of seem like they trimmed their effort into this as well.
Yeah.
Like Lex is just not a big deal at all.
Well, I guess now is a good time to bring up the second reason why this is probably my least favorite Royal Rumble match ever. My first being the 60-second intervals. It's too fast and it kind of ruins the whole pace of the match for me. The second thing that I really don't like about this Rumble is there's not enough credible people. One of the things about Rumbles, once they made it that the winner gets to challenge the champ at Mania, then you have real stakes. Like the first couple Rumbles, that wasn't the case, and it was just a thing that you can win. So Hacksaw Jim Duggan can win it, and it's fine. Once you add the stipulation of the winner goes to Mania to face the champion, that ups the stakes. But with that comes, I know that Jacob Blue is not going to win the Rumble and go on to face the champ at Mania. So there's going to be certain guys that have a shot and certain guys that don't. This Rumble, I think, had the weakest roster of people that would credibly be in the main event at Mania. And that really kind of took it down for me.
I have a very similar note that I made right around this time, that if I had to watch this again, I would make a list of people who are kind of obvious to be considered, and then people that very clearly aren't,
Yeah.
to kind of go back and watch this with a different point of view. But yeah, that
Well,
right there.
that's like, yeah, once you add the stipulation of that the winner goes to Mania to face the champ, that makes the Rumble more important and it raises the stakes, and that's a good thing. But the downside is, it's not going to be a lot of guys. But each Rumble, you have guys where it's like, okay, it could be this guy, it could be that guy. And this one, I think the amount of people that were in the match, the Rumble match itself, was so weak that there were so few people that it would be like, it's kind of like, is it Lex or Shawn?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
either Lex or Shawn. And you know that going in.
yeah.
Whereas most other Rumbles, there's more people that could credibly challenge at Mania.
And this is where, like, I saw a video on YouTube, kind of chronicling all of the guest, like the some of the more crazier guest entrants in the Royal Rumble. I wrote Dick Murdoch is here,
Yep.
and I wrote, wow, the WWF was probably really close to bankruptcy at this time if he is the. And that's not a commentary on him. They didn't. It's like Dick Murdoch is here. Oh, look, here comes Adam Bomb.
Yeah.
It's like, this guy is not on your show every week. If you don't
Yeah.
care about it, it's going so fast. I'm not going to care about it.
Yeah. No, that's certainly a fair point. Yeah. So, Lex is number 19, and that's why I thought that was a good time to bring it up, because Lex was one of the very, very few guys in this match where it's like, okay, this guy could credibly be in a world title match at Mania. But the
Yeah.
rest of the entrants were so weak that it was preposterous to think, it would kind of be anyone other than Lex or Shawn. So Luger eliminates Mabel. Luger press slams Shawn. I made a note. It is the third time in the match that someone has press slammed Shawn. He took a lot of press slams in this Rumble. Luger comes out 19th, and it's the third time Shawn has gotten press slammed in this match.
See, when here, where is okay? We'll get there. Sorry, keep going.
So number 20, Mantar comes out, and I made a note of something Jerry Lawler said. I don't know if you caught this, because this is not true. Lawler on commentary says, Jimmy Cornette is really high on this Mantar. That's not true. That is not a true statement.
That yeah, right there with you.
I'd like to hear Cornette address that on his one of his podcasts.
I'm gonna do a whole episode about that. That'd be fantastic.
Even in character, I don't know if Cornette could bring himself to pretend to be into Mantar. Maybe he did at some point in a promo, but I think that would have been hard for him to even pretend in character to be high on this Mantar character.
Let me see here.
Excuse me.
Where is my note? So if I can just jump in for one entrant.
Okay.
Aldo Montoya comes out.
Yep.
And I write, Aldo still not earning that can of corn.
Nope.
I was really proud of that when I wrote it.
I remember that fondly. What was it at
the mall?
JCPenney?
Yeah, it was at the mall somewhere. We didn't even leave the can of corn.
Yeah, to anyone who watches, we should explain that just in case anyone watches this who doesn't know the story.
That we're trying to keep food away from needy people.
Was that they had a thing where you can come to JCPenney at the Holyoke Mall and meet a WWF superstar, and you bring a non-perishable food item to donate. That's the price of meeting a WWF superstar. And we went and we had a can of corn, and we saw it was Aldo Montoya, and we bailed. We're like, fuck this. And we didn't even give them the can of corn because they said Aldo Montoya.
That's right. And I do have a fun...
We were assholes. We were such assholes, even as kids.
Well, yeah, but I mean, to be fair, they sent him.
We didn't know he'd go on to be just incredible.
No, and I went with Tony to a house show. He was there. Abyss wrestled there. It was me, Tony, and Tony brought his sister, and Tony and PJ are very chummy. And so, he came out, and I did get to meet and chat with Aldo. Awesome guy. His match that night was great. It's not a commentary on that individual. It's a commentary on just how utterly awful some of these gimmicks were.
Yeah, the gimmick was terrible. The shit on his face, the yellow jockstrap. I know everyone calls it that.
And I know he wasn't a fan either. And like I said, I did actually get to meet him and talk with him for a few minutes. Awesome guy.
And that's the thing where it's like, even in this era, which is known for all the terrible gimmicks, it's sort of like Duke Drosy is terrible, but I get what it is. He's a garbage man. I understand what the gimmick is. What the fuck is Aldo Montoya supposed to be? Portuguese man of war. What does that even mean?
I'm not even sure if that's a real thing.
Right, that's the thing. At least I can understand what Duke the Drosy is.
Or Mantar.
Yeah, it's terrible, but I understand what it means. What the fuck does Portuguese man of war mean?
Yep.
Number 22 is Henry Godwin. Number 3, we have Billy Ass. Number 24, we've got Bart Gunn,
Yeah.
which I guess whichever smoking gun it was that was so hurt they had to abandon the tag titles. I guess
I
they recovered pretty quickly from that injury because they
yeah.
both come out back to back here.
Yep. I also made a note about that.
I also made a note that Lawler took a kind of a funny little shot at Luger here after Bart came out. He said that Lex Luger's mom is a very strong woman. She got strong from raising dumbbells.
I didn't hear that.
Yeah. A funny little, Lawler's good with those little one-liners.
Yeah.
Up next, number 25 is Bob Backlund. And once again, Brett comes out, attacks Backlund. I was like, this is great. I like bitter, I'm holding a grudge, Bret Hart. And I like just the intensity that he comes out and kicks these people's asses. Like it seems so believable. Like
Yeah.
everything Bret did.
Yeah. But even back in this time, if you're a baby face, there are just certain things you don't do. And
Yeah.
After the Survivor Series match with Owen getting in there with this match against Backlund, and now here, like it's like, all right, here we go.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the way Bret is. It's like, yeah, you don't fuck up a title match for Bret Hart where he could possibly be the champ. You don't fuck over a guy like Bret when the title's at stake.
Yeah.
He's good. I did make a note though. So Bret came out and attacked the two guys that ruined his title match. So Bret holds a grudge here. I noticed. I made a note. Diesel has not come out and attacked anyone who fucked up the title match for him.
That is my next note.
Yeah, okay.
I wrote Bob is the first guy I thought of possibly winning and didn't die inside. And then I wrote Bret takes revenge on Bob, but Diesel doesn't on HBK.
Yeah, Sean's been in there the whole time. Diesel didn't come up and attack him. I also made a note too that because in a lot of rumbles, a lot of times people do double duty. So they'll have someone who's in a singles match or a tag match, and then they'll appear in the rumble match itself later in the night. You don't see that here. No one's doing double duty.
Yeah, that's true.
And oftentimes they would have that, but they didn't here.
Well, and like the first person that kind of comes to mind was when Piper won the Intercontinental title in '92.
Yeah, because they built up that he could leave with all the gold. Because that was the year that the winner got the title. So they made a big deal out of Piper could win two titles in one night. But and maybe that's why this group of competitors that's in the Rumble match is so thin, is because like no one did double duty. Because let's say Razor had an IC title match. If Razor was in this Rumble, okay, Razor's a guy I could buy winning.
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean, like
or Jarrett possibly. I mean, he would be a contender.
Yeah, exactly. Or Taker, like. But the fact that no one did double duty, the talent is stretched pretty thin here, and that's why I think there's so few people that could believably win this thing.
And especially with 60 seconds in between, it would have been a lot more feasible for guys to do double duty as well.
Yeah, like so it's like, yeah, throw Razor in this. I'd buy Razor as a guy who could conceivably win and go on to main event Mania. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, so I guess we both had the same thought that Bret's holding a grudge and attacking people, and Diesel doesn't give a fuck. He's letting Sean go coast to coast here. But he's still the champ, so maybe.
Yeah, that's true. He got to walk out with the title, so.
At number 26, we have Stephen Dunn. Lex eliminates Backlund. Brett, even after Backlund gets eliminated, Brett keeps beating him up. I like that.
Yeah. Yep. The crowd liked that too.
Yeah, it's like you're not out of the woods yet, motherfucker. Like,
But again, this also pulls a former world champion, a former two-time world champion, the last champion before the current champion, right out of the match.
yep. And I guess it's believable because Brett beat him up before he enters the thing.
Oh
So
yeah. No, I don't think that took away from that. It's just
it's one of
we
the few people that could believably win this thing got eliminated right away.
yeah.
At number 27, we have Dick Murdoch. 28 is Adam Baum. 29 is Fatu. Fatu comes in and him and Billy Gunn square off. And it just made me think of where both those guys are going to be in a few years. Like, they did all right for themselves. They came pretty far from being Fatu and Smoking Gun here.
Yeah, and neither of them were even close to their final form either. The Sultan is going to be around, Rockabilly.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be a few years, but they both get there, and they'd both be a big part of the biggest period in wrestling history.
Yeah.
They'd both be big players. So, yeah, I just thought of that when those two were going at each other. Lex eliminates Mantar. And the last entrant is Crush. Crush and Murdoch eliminate the Guns. Aldo eliminates Dunn.
And I noticed that they had cut to the Guns who looked like they were trying to roll around in a haystack or something like that. Like just kind of randomly, and then off they go.
Yeah. Yeah, the ring is pretty full by the time Crush comes in. So there's a lot of eliminations here. Aldo eliminates Dunn. Lawler, again, and I always get a kick out of him changing his mind with the picks. So Lawler here, now that the last guy has entered, Lawler picks Shawn Michaels or Lex Luger or Crush to win. He narrows it down to 3 guys he thinks are going to win.
Yep.
And then Vince is like, only one man can win. And Lawler goes, last year 2-1. Which I just love. Just the delivery. Just snarky. Like,
and I bet Vince shot him a look.
Yep. So, yeah, I really like that exchange between the two of them. Where he picks 3 guys to win. Only one man can win. Last year, 2-1.
Yeah.
Motherfucker. Like, Vince didn't like that.
Yeah.
Because he says something like, well, I guarantee that will never happen again.
Yeah.
To try to cover it up. Because Lawler got him with that.
He sure did.
And
since we're down to like the final 4 and the final 5, I'm sure Vince did not appreciate that.
Yeah. Crush eliminates Adam Baum. Yeah. Shawn eliminates Aldo. Crush eliminates Fatu. Murdoch does an airplane spin on Henry Godwin, which Shawn walks into it. That's super old school, just walking into the feet during an airplane spin. Murdoch and Godwin go over together. And Murdoch gets eliminated, but Henry Godwin hangs on, which was kind of impressive for a guy as big as him that he hung on. And I also was like, okay, this is another way to reinforce the both feet have to hit the floor rule for later on.
Yeah, that's true.
That's another way to highlight that because he hangs on. So they really want to drive that point home. I think that's why they did it this way. But I just thought credit to Henry Godwin for being as big as he is and be hanging on and not go over. Because I don't think you trust a lot of guys that big to do that spot, but he did it well.
Yeah.
So props to Henry Godwin. Gets back in, and then Lex eliminates Henry Godwin, and we're down to the final 4. I always love the final 4. So we have Shawn, Lex, Crush, and Davey.
So you have numbers 1, 2, and 30.
Yep.
which is a
And then Lex was 19.
yeah,
So Lex is in the middle. But yeah, the first two guys are still in there, and then Crush is the fresh guy. Um, Sean eliminates Lex, and then Sean, because he's a heel, tries to cut a deal with Crush that they team up to get Davey out. I like the logic that Lawler, I forget if it's Lawler or Vince, questions that. I think it's Lawler. Says, I would try to team up with Davey because Crush is fresher.
yeah,
So I like the logic to that argument.
yeah, that's true.
Because it would be harder. Let's say Crush and Sean team up, eliminate Davey. Now Sean has to square off with the guy that came in last.
Yeah,
That's fresher. So I like that. I'm pretty sure it was Lawler brought that up. Like I try to, if I were Sean, I'd try to team up with Davey and get Crush out because Crush is fresher. I just like when
yeah.
people try to introduce logic into wrestling.
Well, and that does make a lot of sense. But would Bulldog be able to team up with a heel to take out another heel?
No, but I just like that Lawler brought it up. Like it wouldn't have really made sense because it's a heel and a baby face, but I like that Lawler brought that up. I like when people try to keep wrestling logical,
Yeah,
even though it's an illogical form of entertainment most of the time.
gotcha.
Um, so let's see. Yeah, he tries to cut a deal with Crush. Crush press slam Sean. It is the fourth time that's happened in this Rumble where Sean gets press slammed. Sean escapes. The Bulldog charges. Sean moves, and the Bulldog eliminates Crush. And the crowd really pops because it's down to the original two guys, which is
Yep.
again good storytelling. The crowd knows what it is. They like it. They appreciate it. Um, both Sean and Davey do a really good job of just looking exhausted. You know, I appreciate stuff like that. Bulldog press slam Sean for the fifth time.
Hmm.
Sean spends a lot of time being held over people's heads in this match. And he drops him crotch first on the rope.
Yeah, Sean always took that well.
Yeah, yeah, I guess he liked that spot because he did do it very well. Yeah, so press slam, he drops him crotch first on the rope. Bulldog clotheslines him out, and then Bulldog immediately starts celebrating his victory.
Yeah,
His music is played.
which is that's where I don't think I think at that point they really had kind of crossed the line to make sure that yeah, they were going to pull a swerve on you. Um, the bell
Yeah,
didn't ring, but you can't play his music and then run back in there like that. That ain't right.
yeah, it happened very, very quickly. It was like as soon as he goes over, Bulldog immediately starts celebrating. His music immediately plays. I did make a note. If they were going to go with Bulldog, the crowd bought it. They were happy for this because I know Bulldog was really close to being a main event guy, and he was someone who, for a long time, was a challenger to the world champion.
Yeah,
And it's kind of like always the bridesmaid, never the bride. And I know people have talked about like, could Bulldog have been the world champ? Would he have done a good job with that? So I did make a note that when they played his music and the crowd thought he won, they were into it.
yeah. Um, I also like I didn't like that they played his music, but they play his music and you get a nice 30-second tap dancing lesson from Sean as he's trying to keep both his feet off the floor,
Well,
which
and I noticed the camera work because Vince's camera guys are really good, and especially when they have things like this, like we talked about it with Brett and Lex going out together in '94. When they do things like that, I try to pay attention to the camera work, what they catch, what they don't, when they cut away. Um, and I noticed that After the clothesline, they show that Sean still is hanging onto the top rope, and then they immediately cut to Bulldog.
Yeah.
And I know that was deliberate. But so you can see that Sean is hanging onto the top rope, but you can't. It was like the hard camera; you can't see his feet. But they immediately cut away from that and cut to Bulldog celebrating. Um,
And
so I
yeah,
just thought that was interesting the way they filmed it.
yeah. No,
And
I think you're right. That makes
so it gave the impression of Bulldog winning, but that so then Bulldog is on the second rope. He's got his arms up celebrating, and then out of nowhere, Sean does a running axe handle to Bulldog's back, knocks him over the top rope, and he gets eliminated.
ding, ding, ding.
And then Fink announces that only one of Shawn Michaels' feet hit the floor, so he wasn't eliminated. Shawn wins. And then, and only then, do they show the replay. So all of this stuff happens before they show the replay of
You're
Shawn.
absolutely right.
That's what I tried to pay attention to, the camera work and the sequence of the way things unfolded.
Yeah.
So all of that stuff happens before they show the replay. I just made a note of this stuff because I thought that's important, the sequence of events here.
Yeah, and I remember listening to Bruce and Conrad talk about the '94 finish, and I believe Conrad asked him something like, what would you have done if it was really obvious and the fans in the front row were saying, no, 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 it was this instead of this, and he's like, well, then they would have, been the only ones who knew that, and so I absolutely did not think about the order of the cameras going when Sean went over.
Yeah, I really tried to pay attention to the sequence and what they showed, what they didn't, and because this is a unique thing. They had never done anything like this before in the Rumble, so I did want to try to pay close attention to how it unfolded, what they showed, when they showed it. Um, and I would imagine that they probably did it this way. They didn't show the replay until whoever was in the production truck could review the footage and make sure what was on there.
What
Because I
is
think because I think that Bruce said with this Rumble, Vince was worried that Sean could pull it off.
yeah.
And so I think they wanted to review the footage before they showed the replay and make sure that Sean only one of Sean's feet hit the floor. Because I know with the '94 Rumble, they had multiple camera angles to fall back on.
Yeah, but not this one. They had a camera guy right there, and
Yeah,
so I was just thinking, like, if by chance both of his feet did hit, what would they do then?
right. Yeah, so that, and I think that again, like I heard Bruce say that Vince was concerned about like, could Sean pull this off? Which, if any pro wrestler ever
Yeah,
could pull this, like Sean would be out of every wrestler who's ever lived, the one I would be least worried about screwing this up would be Shawn Michaels,
yeah,
like literally ever.
yeah. I had noted that after Davey had gone out and they had announced that Sean was the winner, that Sean is finally in the main event, not as a contender, but as the man. We have the man, the myth, and the legend. And I think this is the beginning of Shawn Michaels having that quippy little mantle of being the man. Like when he's
Yeah,
like at Survivor Series a couple of years ago, where he was IC champ and Brett was world champion. It's going to be a great match, even back then. But Sean was not booked into that match because it might be his time. Like I see
yeah,
him and Bulldog being in kind of the same group as far as that goes.
yeah,
You always saw them in the main event. Sean would obviously become the main event, but this I think is Sean's coming out party.
Well, this and WrestleMania 11, which I'll save it for when we talk about Mania 11 next week. Yeah, this is certainly the kind of the rise of the Heartbreak Kid in this era, and the fact that he was the first guy ever to be the first guy in the Rumble and go on to win it. And granted, it was the shortest Royal Rumble ever,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I had a couple afterthoughts. I was looking forward to going over with you.
I would like to kind of get into the replay